Would I view it via the Zoom?
Let me,
Ewert County Planning Commission for Tuesday, March 11th. We have an agenda that's going to take a lot of time. Thanks for coming out. We've got a nice crowd tonight. That's great. Hopefully more will join us along the way. There's some big items tonight, so it's nice to see the public here to give us some input on their feelings and thoughts and concerns and questions. So thanks for coming out. Next item on our agenda will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next item. Commissioners, were there any questions or concerns on the minutes of January 7th and January 14th? Seeing none.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve minutes from January 7th and January 14th.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next item we'll get into on our agendas, petitions, applications, and public hearings. First thing I'll ask of the planning commission is, does anyone have any conflicts of interest with any of the items on tonight's agenda?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do, sir. Not working.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna ask for a little bit of input from legal.
Yep, so Kemi, if you do have a conflict of interest on the item in which you have a conflict, if you feel it necessary to refrain from participating in that conversation, you just disclose that at the beginning of the discussion of that item, that you will not be participating in that discussion. You can stay up here in your seat, you don't need to leave.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Director Grover, I'm gonna let you introduce the item as we go through the process here, so.
You bet.
I'll take the floor.
So the first item on the agenda is file ZMA 2024-12, an application for a zoning map amendment for approximately 23 acres located in the southwest corner of 4700 West and 1150 South intersection, from the C1 neighborhood commercial zone to the R3-8 single family detached zone. And as you review this, you will be looking at, this is a legislative item, you will be reporting a recommendation to the county commission, and we will have final say on this one. This one you will need to open and close with a public hearing. Public comments are required and welcome, and this is where you want to take input from the public because you want to get it right as we look at this area, because there's going to be some requests here that requires legislative action. So as you do this, keep that in mind as you review this, and Mr. Ewert is going to be presenting this from staff.
Thank you.
Morning, commissioners. Good to be here with you. So what we have on the agenda tonight is a request for a rezone from C1 zone to the R3A zone. This is for Fieldstone homes. Excuse me. And it's on the intersection of 4700 West and 12th Street, or 1150 South. As you can see in red, it's that triangular piece. This piece was rezoned to the C1 zone a few years back, and the applicant is asking for a rezone to a different zone. The R3A zone is the multifamily attached. So it wouldn't allow stacked units, but it would allow single family attached and multifamily attached. The zone map, if it was changed, would look like this. So on the left-hand side, you've got the existing zone map with that property being zoned C1. And on the right-hand side, you've got what the zone map would look like if you were to approve this. And then this is what the concept plan looks like for the project. As you can see on the right side in white, you've got some small single-family lots. And then over here in blue and orange, you've got townhomes, attached townhomes. So just the quick and dirty bullet points when you're looking at a rezone. These are the 6 items that we want to look at coming out of the county code on what to evaluate when you're looking at a rezone. As you guys know, rezone is not an administrative item, it's a legislative item, so there's a lot of deference on what it is that you choose to apply. However, the code does set these 6 items up as at least the initial principles for your consideration. So number 1, consistency with the general plan. Number 2, compatibility with existing development. 3, impacts on adjacent properties. 4, adequacy of facilities and services. 5, environmental considerations, and 6, traffic mitigation. As far as consistency with the general plan, I'll go through each of those 6 items here on the next few slides. The general plan does talk a little bit about mixed-use residential and missing middle housing and the need for potentially finding a solution to the housing affordability challenges that we're having in our area. We know that this area, Weaver County specifically, is growing. We know that we're not stopping having children. And so looking at how housing is addressed in the future is really important, knowing that growth is going to happen. So the general plan does say that we should find areas where this kind of housing is appropriate. The general plan also has a future land use map. And the future land use map, right, for this project, or excuse me, for this property, designates the land for vehicle-oriented commercial uses. Vehicle-oriented commercial can potentially have some residential in it, but it's primarily intended to have that commercial use on the ground floor, street-facing ground floor, and vehicle-oriented means we're talking about car washes, drive-through restaurants, pharmacies, etc. So right now, the future land use map wouldn't support just the residential rezone. As far as compatibility with existing development, the statement directly from the code says we need to determine whether the proposed amendment, zone map amendment is what that means, is compatible with the overall character of existing development in the vicinity of the subject property, and if not, consideration of the specific incompatibilities within the context of the general plan. As we're looking at a growing community where we've primarily got large lot residential and agricultural uses, we know that there are some components of the general plan, if implemented immediately, probably isn't going to match what's going on right next door. And so looking at changing uses as they fit within the context of the plan is just as important as looking at it within the context of the existing community. I did want to show you existing community. We've got large lot residential to the north, some pretty big residential lots, as well as we've got a commercial use on the corner as the gas station there. So not a whole lot of higher density housing in the area. Mitigation measures that would be needed. So this is impacts on adjacent properties and property owners. The streets will need to be improved, which the street frontage would at the very least be improved along 4700 West and 12th Street. UDOT doesn't want them to get access to the site from 4700 West. There is a potential that we could get an overpass for that railroad at some point in the future, probably not anytime soon, but at some point. And so they don't want to create accesses that are going to be dependent on that street being that grade. The other thing that we would look to this applicant to address with UDOT is deceleration and acceleration lanes. As you're leaving that intersection heading to the east, or as you're approaching the intersection heading to the west, you can get up to some pretty high speeds. So getting into this development, we want to definitely make sure we've got some good decel to get in there. Emergency egress. So right now the project is showing that they're going to have 2 egresses, which does meet code. One of the challenges, though, is the location of those 2 egresses are pretty close to each other. Fire chief is going to be a little uncomfortable with that. But I think with the position of this project, the way that their roads are laid out, they can get emergency egress on the 4700 or even on the 12th Street in other locations. So we would want to work with them on that. Dark sky lighting, the applicant has proposed to follow the county's outdoor lighting code. And there's also a cell tower on the property, which I was talking to the owner this morning. The cell tower is right here. If we're to approve this project, we probably want to maybe even table it today if you guys wanted to or inclined to approve it. Because we would want to meet with the operators of those cell towers just to figure out exactly what it is that limitations they might have with their radio frequencies. The owner suggested that because of the height of the tower, buildings in this area more than 30-40 feet might be a little bit challenging. So we would want to address that with them. As far as adequacy of services goes, we've got culinary and secondary water that's going to be needed to be provided to the project. We do have a letter from Taylor West Weaver Water acknowledging that the project is coming, letting us know that if they do want to connect, there's some steps they need to take to make that connection. And we also have a statement coming from Central Weaver Sewer saying essentially the same thing. They know that the project is coming, and if they want to connect, they're going to need to put in an extension line and certain connections. And then stormwater, we would look for typical stormwater mitigation for the project. There's going to be a lot of hard surface that the water is not going to be able to perk into, so we want to make sure we've got some good stormwater facilities there. As far as the development agreement goes, this one was actually fairly simple. The applicant is asking for a 10-year term with a 5-year extension, and the applicant is offering a lower park contribution than what we're used to seeing. So the park contribution really is, as you guys know, the intention is when you get a rezone, you want to get 10 acres per 1,000 population increase. And so in this particular case, we'd be looking at quite a bit of park acreage that would be needed to facilitate the open parks, rec, and open space needs of the project. We have done the math on how much it costs to build parks to that standard, 10 acres per 1,000. And the math turns out to be anywhere between $6,500 to $10,000 per front door. And so we settled on $7,500 per front door if it's a donation in lieu of actually providing a park area. So the 2,000 is a little lower than what we would expect in terms of donation. They will be required to, if they do the project, build a pathway on 4700 West. 4700 West is intended to have a pathway all the way along it. Once you get into the village core area of 4700 and 900 South, those will turn to sidewalks as that build out happens. But as of right now, this project would put in a 10-foot wide asphalt pathway. They would need to address how to cross the tracks with that. They would also need to address potential Union Pacific challenges with the increased traffic demand on that. So it's actually a fairly simple request overall in terms of our evaluation and how our evaluation goes. Plugs in very nicely with the template development agreement that we've been working on. However, because it doesn't match what the future land use map says, we're recommending denial of the rezone. But you guys have the ability to do what you need to do as a recommending body. You can send whatever recommendation onto the county commission that you guys feel is appropriate. You can recommend approval. You can recommend approval with adjustments. You can recommend tabling, and you can recommend denial. Any questions for me?
Yes. Has the Parks District had any input on the amount of the applicants willing?
Not that I've seen.
Okay. Commissioner?
I'm ready for a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. Okay. I'll ask for a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are now in public hearing. Please come up to the podium, give your name and address, 3 minutes. And anything you have to say, we'll address after everyone's spoken. We'll address it the best we can between staff and the applicant. Thank you very much.
Chair? If I can ask, if you would state your names and addresses slowly enough for me to write them down, I want to make sure they're on the record, please. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
For sure. Randy Smith, SMITH, kind of common. So I'm actually the applicant, and I guess maybe now's the time.
Randy, just like, what's your address? Go ahead and give us your address. 12896 Pony Express Road, Great Utah. I'm the applicant, I'm with Fieldstone Homes. I appreciate planning commission. We've done several work sessions with you guys and talked about this project. You guys are lucky to have a Charlie, and every jurisdiction needs a Charlie. So he's been great to work with. A couple of quick things. I mean, as you know, the project is very access constrained. We've talked about that a lot as a commercial use and a vehicular oriented commercial use. It makes it very hard because surrounded by two sides, well, three sides, I guess, with UDOT roads and then the railroad on the south. We looked at multiple, we looked at first floor commercial, we looked at breaking off the front end for commercial. We tried to understand how 12th Street might work with UDOT and what kind of pedestrian activity gets to happen there, how they can access first floor. And it kind of led us into the concept plan that you guys are looking at today. It represents three separate products. One of them that's under $390,000, one of them that's under $450,000, and the single families are under $500,000. That's the targets, the goals we're trying to reach to. We did offer a lower parks fee because we want to spend the money on amenities inside the project. We want to build nice amenities for the folks who live there. And we are aware of the cell tower and providing access to that and willing to work with whatever needs to happen there. Trying to be fast because I just have my 3 minutes here, but we think this is a great project. We think this is an opportunity to grow with the path of infrastructure. We have PI, water, sewer nearby, stretching out to future developments that are headed out toward Black Pines development and Flagship and William West. And we do recognize this does not align with the future land use map, but we feel like it really does align with the general plan. As the general plan discusses mixes of housing types and prices, sizes, placing a little more density next to the traffic corridor is a good place, right? To load and unload these families as they move to their jobs or to other parts of the city or county. Thank you guys so much for all the work that we've done together, and I'm happy to answer questions, but I realize this is public comment period, so call me up if I can. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Logan. Jill Hipwell, 585 South, 3600 West. I was here during that last one. I know what kind of trouble you guys had trying to make this commercial. You had a lot of people come in here. They were okay with the commercial, but the general plan did not match. We now have a general plan that matches the commercial. Let's leave it that way. The corner, what concerns me is there's gonna be a lot more people going in and out of there now for this subdivision, but yet it's not okay for a business to be there. What's gonna bring in more traffic? And then it kind of concerns me that he's willing to go ahead and take away from our Parks District, which does the community service, to put more amenities into his business. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Commissioners, I'll ask for motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
I have a motion to second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now out of public hearing. And thank you, Ms. Hipwell, you hit on a couple of things that were right in the wheelhouse. I agree. I wouldn't mind some residential there in a form-based environment. I don't think it's the right place for strictly residential. Commissioner?
Well, I agree 100%. This one I struggle with immensely. We've had work sessions and I feel the product that come out of it was a little bit different than the direction I thought we were going with the work sessions. I mean, I could see a little bit of housing, but I definitely like to see more commercial here. My biggest point is there's a process to go through with this. Like what Ms. Hippo said, if you want to change it, there's a process to go through and change the general plan. This applicant's wanting to circumvent the process, I feel. They're not going through the general plan process to get the input. If it wants to be warranted and changed, then we can make that decision at that time and then possibly move forward with the rezone. So this one's pretty simple in my head, and to the point on the parks, I didn't catch that. In my mind, I didn't do a lot of study on this one because I don't agree with it. My head's been set on a motion to deny. And it's even more so in there. They wanna downsize that to $2,000 a door for parks when they're gonna offer, from what I can tell on that little map, less than 12,000 square feet of park space and wants that amenities for their folks. The whole point behind that, and one of the parts of the general plan when we kind of felt to go to the smaller lots, was help get the open space in the parks and put that back into something that the community's taking a sacrifice by losing the open space, but at least we can maybe upscale our park services and stuff like that. So it's a big frustration. I'm a no on this one, and that's the way I'm gonna vote.
Chair, I agree with Commissioner Edwards wholeheartedly. Biggest concern is it doesn't follow the general plan. We worked really hard on that. There's a lot, Joe was right, there's a lot of discussion on this topic during that time. A lot of back and forth, a lot of input from the community, so I feel like we need to stay with that. And if I'm taking off my planning commission hat and just being a citizen, I find it insulting that they would want to decrease the donations to the parks by that much compared to what everybody else has, so it's my 2 cents.
Chair, I just want to say I'm not opposed to residential in this area, but the concept we've been given is vague, and I don't like the density of the ask. And I don't feel like we have enough information to move forward with the rezone.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I think going through the process to get this moved over to commercial, one time that was sort of, even though it's an odd shaped area, would be the kind of the center of Western Weaver County. And I feel that the better use of that is to keep it that. Could be a Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, different kinds of things, maybe a car wash, things that the community could use, because we don't have a lot of commercial area out there. And Julie was just part of the process. So my thought is just to leave it the way it is.
Anyone else? Okay. All right, commissioners, well, I'll ask for a motion on ZMA 2024-12.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we deny the proposal for this request and warrant it on it does not align with the general plan.
I have a motion, I'll ask for a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Klons, you're gonna be staying, I'm sorry, apologize. Commissioner Wiggren,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards, aye. Commissioner Nivell, aye. Commissioner Andreotti,
Aye.
Commissioner McCormick, aye. Chair votes aye as well. That was as close to a full house as you can get, -1. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is 2.2 ZMA 2024 public hearing regarding an application for rezone and associated development agreement for the Westbridge Meadows development, a master plan community that will rezone approximately 1,400 acres of property located within the area south of the Union Pacific Railroad between Weaver River and 7,500 West. The zone or zones being proposed include a master plan development overlay zone, MPDOZ, and a variety of single-family dwelling R1, two-family dwelling R2, and multi-family dwelling R3 zones, as well as the form-based zone FB, mixed uses, and the open space zone O1. Director Grover.
This is a legislative item as well. You'll be making a recommendation to the county commission. As you do that, you'll be looking at the general plan and then also will the rezone is compliant with the general plan if it's not. And Mr. Ewert will be presenting, and you'll open and close the public hearing.
Thank you. Minister Ewert, enlighten us.
I'm back. So this is a big project. Big projects like these only come around one or two times in a planner's career or a planning commission's career. So definitely some caution, definitely some intended deliberate thought processes as we've gone through and reviewed this project. It's been in the making, I think, since the general plan was created. The applicant worked with us to make the general plan say generally what it is that they're asking for here. And then they applied for a rezone. We've been talking to them about that rezone for about a year and a half with you guys, a lot of different work sessions. So let's dive into the details. So it's a 1,400 acre, it's actually 1,300, 300 or something like that. Or excuse me, 1,350, I think, or something like that, in total. But we rounded that up to a 1,400 acre, just for sake of conversation. You can see the size of it in comparison to the community, including parts of Western Ogden area. This little line over here is the I-15 corridor. So we're talking about quite a bit of land acreage here. This is a closer view of it. You can see on the property, there's not a whole lot going on right now. You've got the railroad that bounds on the northern side. You've got the Weaver River on the eastern side. You've got 7500 West on the western side and some residential properties that line 7500 West. And then you got the Ogden Bay to the south. So they're pretty well bordered in by either waterway, road or railroad, or the bay. This is the rezone that they are asking for. So on the left-hand side, you see your zone map as it is. It's all zoned to the A3 zone right now, and it's got a solar overlay zone on a portion of it. I don't know if you guys will recall the solar overlay rezone that we did a few years back. Unfortunately, solar never did materialize in the area. And on the right-hand side, you can see what the zone map would look like if the rezone was approved. Just kind of a back and forth so you can see the difference. Again, here's those 6 items that we talked about with the first item. Consistency with the general plan, compatibility with existing development, impacts on adjacent properties, adequacy of facilities and services, environmental considerations, and traffic mitigation. So I'll go through each of those. My presentation on this one's going to be a little bit longer because there's a lot more to talk about. The general plan, when it comes to residential uses, primarily talks about 3 different residential uses. One is very large lot residential, another is medium to large residential lots, and the third is the mixed residential. This project is intended to bring medium to large single family dwellings as well as the mixed residential, which could be anything from single family dwellings upwards to stacked flats in the R3S zone, S standing for stacked. The general plan says when reviewing the future land use map, the biggest proposed land acreage change is in the west central Weaver area. Most of the area is proposed to become medium large residential lots. In the Ewert Highlands, that's not applicable here, yada yada yada. Okay. Another thing that it talks about is that mixed use residential. So you can kind of see the images of what we're saying mixed residential and the missing middle housing type is. Learning from developers a little bit on the financing side of things. It's easy to sell single family. It's easy to sell stacked apartments. It is not easy to sell that missing middle, just not as marketable as those other 2 product types are. General plan says one type of housing that is especially missing, known as the missing middle, is the type between higher density apartments and condos and single family residences. Townhomes, connected patio homes, duplex, triplex, quadplexes, and similar housing styles may provide a more palatable option for families who cannot afford a single-family residence but do not want the lifestyle of a higher density apartment complex. Encouraging regulations that support the creation of this housing option and ensuring the viability of long-term maintenance will be an important component of creating a community that can provide for all stages of life and family situations. It's no secret that 1 acre zoning is expensive. 1 acre lots is expensive, and we've got a lot of 1 acre lot potential out in that area. What part of the purpose of the general plan was to help with that housing affordability side of things, and maybe provide some smaller lot sizes in several different cross sections of housing product. Another thing the general plan tells us is that we want to look to developers who can create master plan communities. It even says, as far as master plan communities go, that we should be looking at maybe even some density increases, density boosts to encourage master plan communities. And there are a few different reasons for why it's important to see these larger master plan communities, not because we like development necessarily. It's because when they all come in together on a larger scale, you can better plan the infrastructure, you can better plan the services, you can better plan the layout than if it's done on a 20 acre by 20 acre small development basis. And when you can better plan those kinds of things, your long-term financial impact on the community goes down pretty significantly. So it stimulates cohesion and integration of development facilities and services. It provides an economy of scale. You're more likely to achieve community benefits than with smaller developments. It better facilitates all stages of life and family situations, creating a balanced and vibrant environment. One of the reasons why that is the case is because a master plan or a developer is doing a master plan. They're not looking to do all single family dwellings or all apartments. If they're doing something at this scale, they're going to try and respond to what the market is asking for. And so they're looking at diversifying the product as opposed to just doing single family. Whereas if you're looking at the 20, 40 or 80 acre rezone and developments, a lot of those come from a typical type of developer that wants to do single family dwellings in their product, and they're competing with each other for that specific product. And then master planning also encourages landowners and developers to find solutions that benefit both new and existing residents. So how do we do that? Benefiting both new and existing. I'll get some details on that in just a second. So this is the general plan map, the future land use map on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is the requested rezone. You'll see that there are some differences. Well, our zoning code provides for a variety of different R1. R1 stands for single family detached. A variety of different R1 zones. It allows an R2 zone. R2 stands for two family dwellings. And then there's an R3A and R3S, which you guys are probably more familiar with because we just worked on some ordinance changes for the R3A and R3S. And so used to be just the R3 multifam, and we decided to stratify that a little bit further between R3A, anything from a single family dwelling all the way to attached townhomes. R3S is anything except single family detached all the way up through stacked flats. So you can see a little bit of a difference from what the future land use map shows, because all of those different zones that we have in our zoning code are not specifically called out in the general plan. General plan simplifies a lot of this, where you've got the large lot residential on one side of that in yellow, you've got the mixed residential in the intention wasn't to create a hard line right there on that where that proposed road is. The intention was to show that the density should be slowly ramping up from where we've got existing residential uses on 7500, slowly ramping up to maybe a village center where the red is. Red stands for commercial, the lighter kind of pinkish stands for vehicle oriented commercial. And then, like I mentioned, you got mixed residential and medium to large residential on the outside. We also see the general plan, we are looking for some large parks in the area. It's really important to make sure that we get that open space. One of the biggest things we heard during this general plan process a couple of years back was we don't want to see development, we want to see the area rural. If we have to have development, make sure it has a lot of parks and open space in it. And we took that to heart in creating that. I know you guys know that better than I do. Because the general plan talks a lot about parks and recreation. Most developers that I work with, aside from Randy, who I appreciate his compliments, I always tell a developer to not come up here and tell you guys that I'm great to work with. I want them to tell you guys that I'm really hard to work with. I'm negotiating for the public really hard. But thank you to Randy. Most developers say, I'm tired of talking about parks and recreation. Can we please stop talking about this? And my response back to them is, no, this is important. This is important to this community. Okay, community contributions. So just on the surface, they're looking at 90 acres of regional park. But 90 acres of regional park isn't the same thing as 10 acres per 1,000. If we're looking at 10 acres per 1,000, given the density that they're requesting, we'd be looking at closer to 300 some odd acres of open space. So where's the difference coming from? When we look at the planned park areas, the 90 acres of planned park, these are big regional parks. You might have a sports complex, you might have a specific type of park product that maybe the park district wants to run or that the developer wants to run in that area. But the remaining open space areas you're going to find in the river corridor, you're going to find in your open space trail corridors that run either along streets or in between housing developments. You're also going to find that open space inside of subdivisions in form of smaller public parks that are owned and operated by the HOA but open for public use. One thing when we were talking to the park districts about how to best negotiate for parks and open space, they were very clear. It's hard to manage and maintain these small little pocket parks all over the place. They make a community great, so we shouldn't try and avoid them, but it's just not something they want to take on. They want to take on the larger spaces where they've got an economy of scale for the operations and maintenance. And so even though you only see some green on this map, imagine quite a bit more, 1,400 acres or so, imagine about 300 of that being open space. They are committing to 100-foot Weaver River corridor. You guys know that we've changed the ordinance for that corridor to be 300 feet. But we've had other conversations with this developer and others about maybe modifying that for master plan developments. So they have proposed the 100-foot Weaver River corridor. It will have a parkway trail. This is actually a very significant length of that riverway. That will eventually connect Weaver River Parkway all the way back into West Haven, where the current pathway is. And then there's another big donation that's coming from the developer. One of the things that I struggle with a little bit when you're talking about development out on the fringes is the lack of highway infrastructure. We do know that UDOT has a plan to extend the West Davis corridor, whatever, I don't know what they're gonna call it in Weaver County, better not be West Davis corridor. So maybe it'll transition to West Weaver corridor. But we do know UDOT has a tentative plan to locate it across this property, which you can see running north and south, kind of at the curve, the larger piece here. That is long-term slated to be a freeway, a divided freeway, but short-term, it's just it'll start out as a two-lane highway. It's important to me when we're looking at development coming in, that development pays for itself and provides space for things that will pay for itself, as opposed to the community or the taxpayer at large paying for it. One of the examples I like to give is down in the Lehigh area or the Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain area. As soon as that place started to blow up with houses, all of a sudden, that's when UDOT decided that they needed freeways. And that's when they brought out the machine that eats houses and spits out asphalt. That's something that we would rather avoid here in this area with some good planning. This is the Emerald Necklace. The Emerald Necklace is, pardon my pun, maybe part of the crown jewel of the general plan. sorry, dad jokes for days. The idea here is that we want to look at the Weaver River not as just a trail corridor, but as a park corridor, a linear park. Starting from West Haven, wrapping all the way up around where the river runs, and all the way back down to the south, to the southern end of this development here. And just by way of looking at this, let's see if I can find it for you. 12th Street is right about here, the railroad is right about here, so everything from, hard to see my mouse, everything from this point to the south is this project. So it's a significant chunk of that emerald necklace. Compatibility with existing development, I won't read this right off the screen for you guys, but how does this fit in within the existing development in the area? And how does it fit in the context of the general plan? Well, we know the area doesn't have a whole lot going on right now. We know that we've got next door, we've got some residential along 7500, but for the most part, this property is relatively vacant. So it's gonna be hard to say that a project like this fits in, matches. But we know that we were planning for something like this in the general plan. And so within the context of the plan, we're figuring there's gonna be some changes. But what the applicant has done to try and offset some of the challenges with being right next door to residential on 7500 is creating a gradual step up for density. So closer to 7500, you'll have your larger lots, less dense. And then as you move towards the village center, which is the middle blue piece here, that's where you'll get higher and higher densities as you move forward. As far as mitigation goes, we know that we need to work with the applicant if this project gets approved to phase the development in. The intention of this project is to be a 30 to 50 year plan. And the applicant has asked for a term in the development agreement to last that long. So when we're looking at this whole project, we shouldn't be looking at this as we're gonna get all of this tomorrow or even next year or even 10 years from now. It'll take some time. So working with the applicant on phasing development, we need to make sure that we use the master plan concept to our benefit. Phase the project in a way that logical extension of services and facilities, infrastructure is provided in a manner that best suits the community, both the community that the developer is building, but also outside of the community. We know we're going to need increased street capacity, specifically 12th Street, 1800 and 2550. Those roads connect directly to I-15, and we have every expectation that they'll connect directly to the West Weaver Corridor Freeway at some point in the future. And so we want to make sure we're very cautious about that. We've got in the development agreement, we've got a little bit of, we've got a lot of commitment in there that the developer will work with us and with our engineering team. We'll be taking counts and measures at key intersections and along key stretches of those streets to check to see how much of the increased traffic is as a result of this project, and then work with this developer to pay for that difference in those increases. We know that they're going to need to construct water and sewer facilities. We know what they're going to need to get water rights. We talked a little bit about that in pre-meeting. One of the reasons why I'm not super concerned when it comes to water is because the development can't happen without it. And so in some ways, if the development is something that is desirable, looking at the way that the project can be laid out, looking at being thoughtful, being mindful of all that, and then giving the applicant the go-ahead, again, if that's what you want to do, helps the applicant free up a little bit of revenue source to go find resources for these sorts of things. The old adage is money runs downhill, or excuse me, water runs downhill or towards money. And developers always seem to know how to find water. We all know that we've got some water challenges here in the desert. We know that water is a limited, finite resource. We also know that Weaver County doesn't have any role to play. Well, let me back that up a little bit. Doesn't have any current authority over water and providing water. We do have a role to play. We want to try and help everyone play nice in the water sandbox. But, what I know about developers is, if they've got the ability to do their development, they'll find the water. And as we mentioned, or as was mentioned in the pre-meeting, it sometimes is a first come, first serve, kind of deal. We also know that the state, who is in charge of water, they're looking at trying to put together better water plans, as well as looking outside of our current water basins to figure out how to deal with the situation that we're in. The way I look at this is, if the development succeeds, it's because they have a buyer. If they have a buyer, that means that there's a population here who wants to pick it up. So it's a supply and demand question. If this developer succeeds, there needs to be a demand for the development project. That just, it comes down to our kids or economic development, bringing people in from outside. Those Californians or wherever else you want to blame for outsiders. We do know our state is in a really good position economically. We are creating jobs. We know that there's a port authority out there who are trying to figure out ways to bring in infrastructure so that they can create more jobs. Chances are, unless we all stop drinking water or figure out how to drink a whole lot less of it, we're gonna have to fix that problem one way or the other. Some additional mitigation measures. Storm and floodwater master plan. This project is at the very bottom, aside from the Ogden Bay, it's at the very bottom of the Weaver River. It sees flooding. It's seen some pretty intense flooding over the years. I've got some aerial imagery of the property underwater. And so we've looked to the applicant to make sure that they put together a solid storm and floodwater master plan. One thing you'll find in that development agreement is that we do have something in there that says that they've got to do that, and they've got to do it to the county engineer's satisfaction. Open space buffers. We've had some conversations with the folks who are running the DWR property right next door, the Ogden Bay. And they would like to see bigger setbacks, bigger buffers along that common boundary. And then emergency egress, we know that they're gonna need that immediately. There's only one way in and one way out. And I want to make sure it's pretty clear on the record that we've told them that they can't start building until they have two. That emergency egress needs to be constructed, whether it's over the railroad or over the river. We already have too many homes at the end of a dead end road on 7500. We don't want to be adding any more to that. So they'll be finding a way to solve that. Right now, it looks like their phase 1 and phase 2 involves building a bridge over the Weaver River to the west and connecting into 2550 south. But we're not going to limit them to that. They can do it on 18, they can go over the rail line. But what we do say is none of those corridors, 12th Street, 1800 or 2550 should be overburdened before we see improvements or before we see another way into this project. So I'll give you some more details on that in just a moment. They are committing to following our dark sky ordinance. We've got our outdoor lighting code. We haven't implemented it in Western Weaver except for through development agreements, and so they are in agreement with that. And then in working with the folks at the Ogden Bay, the DWR, they have asked for a fence to be constructed between the two properties, something that's non-scalable. One of the biggest challenges with the bird management is domestic cats. And so trying to find a way to keep the domestic cats from going over there where the birds are nesting is going to be really important. New infrastructure, wastewater, culinary, fire protection, and prevention. We have been working with fire chief, with fire marshal to figure out what exactly is needed in the area. The applicant is committed to at least providing acreage, at least 2 acres per fire station, and I think we said at full build out this project will be at least 5 fire stations. So that's a pretty big need. We're still working on infrastructure and trucks and how to fund and get those kind of things, including the buildings. Parks, rec, streets, pathways, being a little redundant here. And flood stormwater conveyance. On flood and stormwater conveyance, the applicant is going to be working, at least right now, plans to work with FEMA to change the floodplain boundaries. They'll be doing some master movement to work with them. Environmental considerations, one thing that we've worked with them to commit to is no development in the flood hazard zones. So like I said, FEMA to remove some of the property, wetland protection, preservation, and or Army Corps replacement, or excuse me, replacement with the Army Corps. That's gonna be really important. I'll show you a wetland map here in just a second. The Army Corps maps show, or excuse me, U.S. Fish and Wildlife shows quite a bit of wetland on the properties. Talking with the applicant, there's actually not quite as much, they think, as is shown on those maps, but they will be working with professionals that they need to be working with to make sure that they do an entire wetland inventory before any kind of development happens. And then once that inventory comes in, if there are critical wetland areas that need to be either preserved or replaced or reclaimed or whatever, they will need to do that. And then Ogden Bay waterfowl concerns, there's a few different waterfowl concerns. You get that much development next to the nesting area, and you know, birds aren't the most social, at least not with humans, they're not the most social animals. And so there could be some effect on that as well. One of the reasons why we wanted to see dark sky out west was to also help with the migratory bird patterns. This is the flood zone map. The orange is the 500-year flood event. I don't know a community that tries to manage against the 500-year flood event. I think we all just don't talk about it, hoping we don't have a 500-year. But we all try and manage to the 100-year flood event, which is the bluish area. These are the areas that they will need to work on. If you recall this. See that the piece up here in the corner, that's kind of where their Main Street Village Core is planned to be. So they'll need to work with the FEMA to take care of that. And then wetland, this is the wetland map for the area. The green means that there's some kind of wetland there that the Army Corps will need to work with the traffic mitigation. So we know that long-term, we're looking at a freeway north-south through the project. But then also our general plan calls for an east-west connector. And our general plan mentioned that east-west connector, maybe it should be a little bit further south, but in talking with the DWR folks, they said that that property was purchased with federal dollars that had strings attached. There's no way to run a road through there, even if the state wanted to allow it to happen. And so we worked with this applicant to move that to the north. We're not asking the applicant to build the freeway. We are telling them, if, again, this is all assuming this gets approved, we're telling them that it's okay for them to build their streets within those corridors. But in the meantime, the difference would just be left as open space buffer. I don't see that western extension, highway, byway, whatever you want to call it. I don't see that being a demand for quite some time. And I would guess that that's only going to be a need if the port becomes very successful. The applicant has committed to providing area for a railroad crossing at 7100 West as well as at 6700 West. If it's not a street crossing in the future, maybe a pedestrian crossing. We know on the other side of the railroad tracks on 7100, we've got a community park. We know that we'll need schools in this area and other community gathering spaces. And so finding ways to get across that railroad track, finding ways to get across the river is going to be really important. And it is something that our general plan does talk a lot about. Traffic mitigation, getting back to I-15 or at least to 1900 West. We put together a plan with the applicant on phasing the project based off of vehicle trips, based on the amount of demand that's going into the project. So one of the things that I really kind of dug in on was I don't want to see 12th Street fall below a level of service C before either 1800 or 2550 is open and accessible into this project. It doesn't seem very fair to the folks on 12th Street to ask them to deal with much more than that. That was a big recurring concern, 12th Street was for folks at least west of the river. Because that's the only way out there, only way out and the only way back, at least the only paved way. So we want to make sure whatever happens with this project, we're offsetting that traffic impact on 12th Street with other ways to get there. I also asked and they've consented to not allowing any of these 12 to 1800 or 2550 to get to a point that they need more than 3 lanes. At the point that they need to be expanded, that's when one of those other corridors need to be open so that they can offset the amount of traffic coming through. So hopefully the goal would be that 12th Street stays 3 lanes, 1800 becomes a 3-laner, and 2550 becomes a 3-laner before any of them would need to be expanded any more than that. Okay. Applicant is telling us they've got a market study that says this is a 30 to 50 year build out. They would like a 30-year development agreement. Actually, they wanted 30 years with 2 10-year renewals. We settled on 30 years with 1 10-year renewal. Maximum dwelling units would be 13,200. If you look at that on the average over the 30 to 50 year build out, you're looking at 264 to 440 homes a year. And 1.2 million square feet of commercial floor area, which sounds like a lot until you consider that a super Walmart is 100,000 square feet. So a little over 11, 12 Walmarts in terms of square footage of commercial space. Phasing, I've talked a little bit about phasing, got ahead of myself. When it comes to infrastructure improvements along 1800 and 2550, we do want to make sure that they are paid their pro rata share. Another thing that I didn't put in my slideshow here that I thought was really important and that the applicant and I have been working on is finding ways that this project can be successful, again, if it's approved, without putting an increased demand on the county administration or county services. And so we got the applicant sent us over some of their asks in the form of development agreement, and there were some things in there I just wasn't comfortable with, and asked them to pull out altogether. That would have required the administration to do a little bit more. One of the things I hear from developers is that the cost of housing is being driven up because of the amount of regulation, amount of red tape, the amount of government oversight that is involved in that. Yet I find a lot of developers ask for or demand a lot more services. And so it's a chicken and egg question. This applicant has been very good to work with in their commitment to not create additional demand on the community. Street connectivity, pathway connectivity. You guys know what this looks like. Our street adjacent pathways, we've got 10-foot wide street adjacent pathways, and then we've got 10-foot wide pathways that run through corridors with the wide right of way. We want to make sure that those rights of way feel open, not like a narrow place that you can hide and do nefarious things. We want them to feel safe and open. Freeway, byway. Oh, the general plan does talk about how the south side of the tracks, we should be looking to preserve a corridor for potential transit for the future, which if this project is successful and reaches full build out, we're looking at about 40,000 residents within the next 30 to 50 years. They'll need to have some kind of transportation provided to them. And so the general plan looks at that rail corridor and says, this is probably a really good spot. We already have some permanent improvements here. Let's do like UTA has done with other rail corridors and just put it right next to an existing corridor. Reserve space for railroad overpasses, Green River. They did want to make sure that they had an alternative for a 1800 or a 1600 south river crossing. Right now, the general plan does talk about both. It says that we should find ways to get across that river the best way. 1600, the floodplain narrows quite a bit. 1800, it's quite a bit wider. However, if the applicant's going to be working with FEMA on making some adjustments to the flood map. then the applicant will probably be able to choose what works best for them. So we wanted to make sure we planned for both potential alternatives. Parks and open space, I think I beat that horse. Dark skies, beat that horse with that. Corridor fencing, one of the things that the general plan talks about is as you get these highways or even these larger collector streets with rear facing lots that abut those, we need to find a way to beautify those. So it's not just looking into someone's rear yard or having hopscotch fence patterns going down those corridors. So corridor beautification is in the plan, and the applicant, you guys were able to take that field trip down to their project in Utah County. You saw how they addressed that, and I felt like they addressed it really well there. They do have building design requirements that they want to impose. The county doesn't impose design requirements on single family dwellings. We do when you get into the multifamily. And so we're just looking to them and their HOA to provide most of those architectural design reviews. Once you get into that commercial area, the form-based area, our form-based code has quite a bit of regulation on design. So we'll be reviewing those a little bit more carefully. Okay, I think about the end of the presentation. Same thing as last time, you can recommend approval to the county commission, you can recommend it with some changes, you could recommend, or excuse me, you can choose to table. You probably want to specify a date certain if you do table it. And then you can also recommend denial to the county commissioners. Any questions for me? Anything I missed? Or didn't say 3 times?
No, you covered everything pretty well. I just have, concern that was a concern in our pre-meeting about water. So I heard you say a few things that caught my ear. So yeah, there's definitely a concern of is water available? And from the local provider, they say yes, but based on what? And we don't know what that basis is. Okay, so I'm trying to cut through maybe some questions that might come up about this, and that is if the applicant can prove out water or not, is that really an objective based on the fact that we as the planning commission are supposed to discern and this MDA, this master development agreement, is that really something that is part of what our recommendation is about? And just trying to cut to that.
It's a good question. The state says that we should be doing some form of water planning, at least taking a role in coordinating with the different water providers to come up with some kind of countywide plan. That is actually going to be due at the end of this year. So we'll have some public hearings to talk about that. When it comes to these projects though, yes and no. If water is a long-standing concern and you don't want to entitle anything beyond our ability to understand water, that's definitely a valid concern. And it's definitely something worth discussing and considering, and certainly something I talked to the applicant about. What I do know is because we're not in charge of water, we don't control that flow. A lot of times when we try and control a development with water, we find the developer shows up to the table with a bucket of water that we didn't realize that they could actually get. We actually see that pretty routinely in the Ogden Valley, where water becomes a really big point of contention or lack thereof. Yet the developers somehow always seem to find that magical well that brings that water. Now, we all know it comes from somewhere. We know it's a finite resource, but where we don't have control over that, I think that's more to your question. Should we allow it to guide our decisions? I think that's a policy question for you guys.
It's chicken and egg.
It is.
Chair, can I make a statement regarding that? I think on a development this size, when I'm hearing yes and no, you should be considering. You should be looking at every little detail with a fine tooth comb. So I say, my stance would be that we consider that.
Chair, I want to build on that if that's all right. You open the door on water and you know this is my sticking point. Weber County Code has 6 general decision criteria for determining whether a rezone is merited. Charlie showed them, and I thank you for that. Item D is the adequacy of facilities and services intended to serve the subject property. On most rezones, on most developments, I don't, let the water provider tell us if they have the water. 13,200 units with the state indoor use at 0.35 acre feet per year is 4,620 acre feet. Causey has a capacity of holding 7,870 feet. So essentially every year at build out, this is gonna use over half of Causey, just on this for indoor use. We're not even talking outdoor use. So yes, I think water is a big part of this. I did some rough numbers. As you look at the development in the western part of the county, we are looking at roughly 7,000 acre feet of water in either paper lots or proposals just in the western part of Ewert County. These other items in here that talk about sewer and road and storm drains and stuff, there's engineering. We can engineer a sewer treatment plant, we can build that. Heck, we can build a water treatment plant. But we have no control over what water is there and what is available. So my big sticking point on this, I wanna know if they had meetings. Weaver Basin controls a lot of that water. The state's put out, there's not much more water, groundwater that's gonna be tapped or gonna be available. None of this property really has many rights on it to even utilize. So I think water is a huge part on this. And to the letter that was issued by Warren Westbourne Water, and I don't wanna discredit them. That's great, they give an approval or an acknowledgement letter that this developer's talked to them. But that was given on March 5th of 2024, that's been a year ago, there's been a lot of developments on this project. And correct me if I'm wrong, Warren Westbourne Water is about 500 connections right now. And you're looking at a development that's 13,000, I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to take place just on water. But I'm gonna get off my high horse for a minute, and I'd like to hear from the public before we start tearing this thing apart.
Anything else, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, the
Comment.
applicant wanted to address you with some comments.
Yeah,
as
that's what I
well.
was gonna say. I think we ought to hear from both the applicant and the public on that.
Okay, so we'll ask the applicant to come up first, and then we'll open up a hearing.
Appreciate the opportunity. My name is Jeff Meets, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, staff, and the public. It is a profound pleasure to be here and be able to present this project. I'm here tonight with Cameron Spencer and Brandon Green, and together we represent the joint venture between our companies in bringing this project for your collective consideration. I'm gonna use this as just a template to kind of guide me, but specifically, I'd love to address maybe a couple of things that I've heard already. And not to be too redundant, but to touch on a few things that Charlie has talked about already. And as we've heard from Charlie, there's a lot to digest for the project this size. And I think the main goal that I have this evening is to ultimately inform the question, why this development and why here at this location? At the outset, we want to acknowledge the complexity of the project, very complex, very large. With that said, it's probably equally important to highlight some of the things that Charlie already went over, which is the current lay of the land is not complex at all, it's vacant. Outside of a few structures along 7500 West on the far west end of the project. Where the lay of the land is vacant and non-complex, meaning it's not in high use, is really what grabbed our attention. And it's rare to find this much property vacant, and it's even more rare to find this much property vacant that's not in high use. And so we see that as an opportunity, specifically as it relates to the impacts that we're all talking about. In the development world, we say, where the crops struggle to grow, we can grow good development. So back to the complexity part of it though, we acknowledge that the long-term plans for this project call for significant growth. It's important to understand that growth specifically is anticipated to unfold over the next 40 years. So the reality is, with the amount of the continued planning and engineering that we have left to do, we don't see a shovel hitting the ground for at least 3 to 5 more years in order to study and make decisions on things that we'll be talking about more this evening. But to specifically address a few of the complexities that we've heard both from Charlie, and certainly I know the public is going to comment on, which again, we are here to listen to the unique challenges. But what we have already went about looking at, we did want to address out the gate on a few of these more complex things. First on the list, water, right? We get that both culinary and irrigation water rights are ever present on everybody's mind, and they certainly are to ours as well. To that end, we did meet with the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District at the behest of Warren West Warren Water. We met with them last July to ensure that in addition to the rights that we already possess, that we could also secure sufficient rights from them to acquire over the life of the project. It was a good conversation, and we were assured, even though we are not their client, Warren West Warren will be their client. So we couldn't get anything in writing from them to us because of that aspect. We were assured that ongoing collaboration would ensure the ability for us to secure water rights again over the life of the project. Delivery of that water is equally important, and we have met with Warren West Warren Water, as you indicated with that letter, and to outline our relationship on what that ongoing relationship is going to look like. Basically saying, we understand that there is a lot more engineering, a lot more study to do, and that we will initiate that engineering and that design from our engineering side and submit to them as it relates to solutions for the delivery of that water. Additional infrastructure for utilities, obviously sewer is also on top of mind. And we're in a very similar situation. There are no facilities out there. We've had some initial conversations, and again, there's a letter from Little Mountain Sewer Association on, again, outlining our ongoing relationship where we intend to provide solutions in the form of engineering with engineering data, and that together we will solve that problem. Roads, we've heard from Charlie, did a great job. We are virtually landlocked, as he highlighted, and we have worked tirelessly with the county to identify the best way to gain access. And Charlie's diagram is perfect. That came as a result of a very robust traffic study that we secured that is way too many pages for all of us to digest in this meeting, but we have went over the details of that traffic study along with how it unfolds into the future. The WMA, we want to be good neighbors, especially as it relates to the ongoing management of public lands. We have met several times over the past year, both in person and virtually, with the folks who manage the Ogden Bay. And so it is, within the spirit of good neighbors that we continue and that we intend to continue that process. There are several touch points in which we will interact with the WMA over the years, not just as it relates to the ongoing operations, but also the introduction of the possibility of storm drain water, which would enhance the WMA. Parks and trails, it's not very often. Again, Charlie did a great job in highlighting that this is a once in a generation opportunity, and it's not very often that a developer gets the opportunity to incorporate the number of parks and trail systems that we're proposing here. And I speak for both myself and our development partner in this, that this will be our largest endeavor as it relates to the sheer miles of trails and the associated acreage for parks, not just the small parks, which Charlie's staff report addressed the 90 acres that we intend, or that we will be dedicating for public parks. But in addition to that, another 160 acres will be dedicated for smaller level parks, trail systems, and many other open space availability within the community. That is monumental. Something that's larger than we've ever taken on. Schools, we've met with the school district with the help of the commissioners to facilitate that. And we're excited to continue to meet with them. They provided a letter today acknowledging the development and the ongoing spirit of collaboration that we intend to continue. Environmental, wetlands, FEMA. This is something that's very familiar to us with past developments. And we will absolutely work in concert with them. So those are just a few items that we face as we look to move forward. I've often been asked, with all of these huge challenges in front of us, how do we not get paralyzed in the present? And that's a very valid question. The best way to answer that question, I believe, is for us to look to the past a little bit. We've been collaborating with Ewert County already for over 3 years. We participated heavily in the general plan process, and what we found was an immensely productive group made up of elected official, infrastructure districts, and the public. And we enjoyed that collaboration. After that was completed, we then made application to the county for this specific project almost 18 months ago. What transpired after that application has been more of the same. Productive collaboration. We have all worked together to make revisions to the county zoning code to better deliver the aspects of the general plan. We have met individually and collectively with entities both county and private to hear and account for all of the unique challenges. We hosted public trips to visit other communities that we have developed in the past and the present in order to gain some level of trust. So I think the word of the day that best captures our relationship with the county, looking back, is collaboration, collaboration, and more collaboration. This will be the same approach that we take as we look forward. Do we have all the answers? No, we do not. But we do know how we're going to get there, and that's going to be collaboratively. We have come to that place where collaboration needs some bookends and structure, and that's all captured in the community plan and development agreement. And we are comfortable and excited to ink our name to that agreement, which would then allow us to continue our significant investment into this community and Ewert County. In closing, I think I just want to simply say that this process thus far, I believe, has captured the spirit of what the great state of Utah stands for: pioneering and family. We are truly pioneering this area together. There is nothing there right now, and together we have all felt the pull to get the planning right. And by the way, that's rare. Rare to find the convergence of that desire to plan together between county, private, and public. So that made me ask the question, why is that happening? The answer is the same question that I asked opening this dialogue, which is, why are we doing this project and why are we here? And the answer is family. This is a once in a generation opportunity to create a community where attainability can meet legacy and every stage in between, to live, play, worship, learn, and thrive for generations to come. It's hard to accomplish that 20 acres at a time, but we can accomplish that together at this scale. Daunting, sure, but achievable. So thank you for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure working with the commission through many work sessions and our tours. And we're looking forward tonight to hearing from the public and to be able to answer any questions that you have. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple quick ones, I think, maybe. Mr. Mead, one of the things that Charlie mentioned was that you all didn't, you as a development didn't believe that there was as much wetland on the property as the map shows.
Yeah.
Has there been any kind of study that's been done to prove that?
Yeah, there has. So we commission, typically in the beginning, one of the very first things we do is we commission a wetland analysis. That is not to be confused with what will happen post the anticipation of our approvals. We would then go and formally apply with the Army Corps for a wetland delineation. But what we do prior to that is we just simply send the same group that we will ultimately hire to do the delineation. We have them just simply give us an analysis of the property and what they feel will be what the ultimate delineation ruling is. So we have completed that. And, to be very candid with the rulings that came through from the Supreme Court last year, there is significant changes to, the existing wetland maps that are still out there. And so with the current analysis, it'll be significantly less, we feel. But we will go through that delineation process.
I have one, I don't know if it's more for Director Grover or for the applicant, but one of the concerns that's come up that's been brought up to this one. This is a large chunk of ground. I know you guys own some of it, but maybe Director Grover, can you address or even Mr. Mead, I believe, the ownership or letters of acknowledgement from the parcel owners that the applicant has the right to ask for the rezone on this entire area of ground?
That's probably more for the applicant, what they've entered into. But those are things that we have to verify, when it comes to subdivision time.
So, I guess, sorry for your answer. So we can rezone a piece of property that the applicant doesn't own or doesn't have like a letter of acknowledgement like we typically see?
There is a possibility of doing that.
Wow, interesting. Didn't know.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll address that. We are not going to do that. That does happen occasionally, which is, quite frankly, shocking, but our development, so 1,400 acres, roughly 60% of that is currently owned by our joint venture, and the other 40% is made up of additional property owners who are agreeing to be part of that joint venture as well. And so prior to county commission's final approval, there will be letters of acknowledgement. We've already discussed the letters of acknowledgement with all property owners, so we're in a good place. We intend to do that prior to county commission's legislation hearing.
Commissioners? Thank you. Okay.
I'll address the public hearing now. I'll add a motion to enter into public hearing. Sorry,
So moved.
second. Have a motion in a second. All in favor of opening a public hearing? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are now in public hearing, same as before, name, address, and 3 minutes, and please address us.
Yes, somebody has to start.
Right.
All right, name, address and all that good stuff.
Yes, please.
R. Jeffrey Hicks, I live in South Weaver, 6680 Southwest 35 East in South Weaver. I also represent Tire Boat Association. And I wrote down a few notes when you were talking, but I didn't bring my readers, so it's all gibberish to me now. Want to start up at the top. I think the emerald ribbon or emerald necklace, whatever you were calling it, this thing, it just shows so much foresight. I have parents and grandparents and great grandparents from this area, and they largely failed us when it came to protecting these kind of corridors. You guys have shown foresight. It's amazing, great. I would urge you to not allow any new developments to infringe in that, push that down smaller and smaller till you have just little teeny corridors. 100 feet on a Weaver River corridors. I can throw 100 feet underhanded. And you run a footpath through there. That is not a corridor. So I would urge you to don't fall into that trap. To keep that distance out. Protect this corridor that our grandparents maybe didn't. coming down a little bit further, addressing some of the wetland areas, maybe not wetlands right now, but development struggles and crops struggle in some of those areas because it's playa, it's prone to flooding, it has a little bit higher salinity, but it's the kind of stuff that is really important and to migrating birds and things like that. So just because it's dry portion of the year does not make it any less important. You'll always find somebody out there that's gonna delineate it as, oh, it's dry ground and doing nothing. But it really isn't. Moving down just a little bit further, and I'm almost done, we hit the edge of the bird refuge, the WMA. That is something that, again, urge you to keep that buffer as far away as possible. This is not only nesting area, but it's also, the public uses that. This is something that's a public hunting area, and to come and ask, to get closer to that and ask us, it's public land, we are all co-owners of that land, and as a co-owner of that adjacent land, I find it ridiculous that they would ask us to no longer do the kind of activities we've always done on our land, so that they can make a few more bucks, move a little closer to the edge. I would urge you to, don't fall for that either, keep that distance out, and public land is rare, it's a gem, and to ask us to give up that, so that they can make a few more bucks, I'm not going for it. But thank you again for what you do. I know it's a thankless job.
Thank you.
Chair.
This is not a popularity contest. Thank you.
If I could remind the public, if you could speak slowly enough with your name and your address so I could get it written down for the record, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Kent. My address is 5987 South, 2200 West in Roy. The first thing I want to make sure that we clear on the record, there was a mistake made during the presentation that claimed the wetland is dedicated by the United States Fish and Wildlife. That's not true. It's only dedicated by the Army Corps of Engineers and the United States Geological Survey. Current maps is what they have to go up. You can't go off of a landowner saying, I think it's less than this. You're looking at probably close to 750 to 1,000 acres having to be mitigated to a 1-to-1 ratio, which will increase, of course, the cost of that development by quite a bit. To find a dead wetland or an area that's not deemed wetland and create a wetland. Secondly, with the buffer zone, my question was with the stormwater permits, are they basing that off the current buffer zone or the proposed buffer zone further into the wetlands? That puts you closer to the endpoint of the water. I know it was also claimed in here that stormwater will be good for the Ogden Bay WMA if they build that development. That's true if the water is clean. We know there's not water from a development that's clean. Oil, gas, lawn clippings, fertilizer, things that cause algae blooms go up because of porous pavement, non-porous pavement. Therefore, you'd actually have to put in a cleaning cell in order to have that water go directly into the Great Salt Lake through the Ogden Bay WMA. With that buffer zone, you might be able to get away with 50 feet at least. That is required by the state. I'm a CPAS, by the way, as a certified professional erosion sediment control. This is what I do for my living, is stormwater work. With that extra buffer zone, you might be able to get away with having more cleaning options without water flowing into the WMA. Lastly, there was proposed a bridge to connect it up to 2500 South. That would cut directly through Ogden Bay waterfowl management area. There's no way around it other than to divide a few properties out there. Then it would cut down the ability to hunt that area as well for the waterfowl. It's also the #1 production area for Ogden Bay for the wood ducks. If you talk about hunters that you're going to cut back on wood duck production, that will start quite a fight. That's one of my #1 areas that I work all year long to be able to produce that, to have good property and good areas for waterfowl to produce. Those are my only comments and questions that I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brody Heslop, Taylor, Utah, 2853 South, 3925 West. There's a couple of things. We talked about wetlands out there. There's no better testimonial of a person that has adjacent land to that land right there. And there's about 5 people in this room that know what that land is wet and it's dry. More so than the Army Corps of Engineers. So when they say it's little to no, that's BS. Okay, I've lived there my whole life. I've been down that river my whole life. So that land is mostly wet. You can argue that to my face, but I'll call BS on you. Another thing that was been addressed, and Bren knows this, and Andrew knows this, we talked to John Favero. And we need another exit for the Weber River to bypass. Because when that river does go over, it floods the whole thing. So you'd be in a constant lawsuit for all those houses that you've got planned to put in there. And until you fix that, I call no deal on this. And then another thing I call BS on is you might have talked to all the commissioners about planning and stuff, but you have not talked to the people that affected this, the owners of the property, the multiple farmers that your project road that you want to go through to connect to that property. You haven't talked about money, who's gonna pay for it. You never talked about who's gonna build a bridge. So there's a lot of concerns. Yeah, you can plan until you're blue in the face, but until you actually talk to the people that it impacts and concerns, the deal's off. No deal. And like Bren touched on it, is the water. When's the last time a dam's been built? Echo, Kazi, Pondview. I mean, you can be a car salesman all you want. You can say you can pull water out of your rear end. But until you got proof in it, until you got a new reservoir that can support this, deal's off. I just want to leave that with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Williams, 4852 West, 5100 South, Hooper. I appreciate you guys and what you do here. My sentiments are the same as the previous speakers. The impact on this large of a footprint is going to go well beyond borders that the maps will be shown. The access, if they do need access to 1800 South, my lord, that's gonna be a huge impact. You know, I rub shoulders with a lot of folks here with volunteered hours out in the wetlands with their airboats and setting duck, goose nests and protecting the resources out there. There's a lot of sentiment probably. Who cares, in 25, 30 years, there'll be a bunch of us that's gone, right? I care about setting a legacy, and I've got grandkids and beyond that I want them to know that I made a difference and tried to protect the wildlife resources out there. When you start talking about the miles of border, this thing is on Weber River, just like Heslop talked about the stormwater. I've been involved in some of that in my lifetime, and you know, without several $2 million colosters to be able to take petroleum and bad materials out of the water to put it back in, all it's gonna do is have a negative effect on the waterways. So just what I wanted to embrace to you all is look beyond that red line that was drawn on that map, how big of an impact this could possibly have on our community before you make a hard decision on it. And again, I appreciate y'all. I've sat in your shoes. Good job.
Thank you.
Casey wins.
Oh, no. I'll go quick, I thought. Thank you, Casey Snyder, Ducks Unlimited. I live in 10802 South Highway 165, actually in Paradise, by born and raised in Liberty. So I'm Weaver County born and bred. So I am representing here tonight Ducks Unlimited. It's a national organization dedicated to the promotion and protection of wetland and waterfowl. We have 6,000 members here in the state of Utah and about 600,000 members nationally. I'm mostly here speaking to support. All of you have received a letter from the Division of Wildlife Resources dated March 7th, just outlining some of their concerns. Our organization has worked closely with the state on the Ogden Bay WMA immediately adjacent to this property. We have obviously thousands of man hours invested in that property, as well as millions of dollars in state, federal, and private money. And just in the spirit of collaboration, which was mentioned earlier, just would like to offer a few suggestions. At one point in this discussion, I know between the state and the proposed developer here, there was indication that they could live with a 600-foot setback off of the WMA, just to raise that as the rationale behind that to the commission. That allows for continued hunting access on the WMA. You have to be 600 feet from structure, so anything within that would limit the scope and the use of the current use of the WMA. Another thing, just to reiterate, is the need for some sort of buffer protection. As we've worked through some of these developments in other parts of the state, having these types of walls that can act as a very demonstrable wall between development and the WMA lowers the impacts on those properties. And so just as you're navigating all the other decisions, those are just a couple that have been flagged by our membership as well as the state. Just encourage you to take a look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark Tobias, 144 West, 4175 North, Pleasant View. And thank you for the opportunity, appreciate it. I heard the applicant, and I'm paraphrasing, I heard it several times, describe this area as vacant and pretty much nothing going on. I would submit that there is something going on in this area, and it's a long-standing, thriving waterfowl migratory area that supports, a precious resource within the state of Utah. And when I heard 13,000 dwellings, I grew up in a town of 4,300 people. 13,000 dwellings sounds more like parking a town on the front lawn of the WMA. This is a sizable development. It's not just your run-of-the-mill residential activity. And I don't think it would be a rewarding experience for me to sit there hunting waterfowl and watch the barbecue of said dwellings and family activities. And I suspect the family would not enjoy my hunting activities, as I stare at their backyard. And so I think we have to be careful that we're setting ourselves up in the future for public confrontation, along the lines of folks that get upset for building their house on a golf course and get hit by golf balls. I see a lot of public complaint and confrontation in the future. The other thing is Utah is unique. It's very unique in the amount of public hunting access, and it has a very rich hunting, fishing, outdoor heritage. And I think we need to protect that to the greatest extent possible, because it's one of the things that makes Utah great to live in. And if we lose that, I think Utah ceases to be the place and becomes just another place. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stephen Davis, 1688 South, 7500 West. I take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about it. I agree with Brett. I think one of the biggest issues out here is the water. And I do sit on the board for the West Florida Water District. And one of the contingencies that was associated with that letter was that the water had to be available. And that's where I have the concern. I look at the size of this project, and we talk about the developers will always find a way to get the water. I'm telling you, the ability to get water out in that area is so limited, you wouldn't believe. There's no secondary water available. And the culinary water that's there all comes from Weaver Basin. Our cost of the water that we get from Weaver Basin, they're charging us 10% increase every year to pay for our water. The water impact fee that we have to charge in order to continue our contract with Weaver Basin for water just recently went up from like about $6,000 to $10,082. We have to charge our residents for every water connection. That goes directly to Weaver Basin because the state with the water district. And then I look at all the subdivisions that are being proposed all along 12th Street down our area down there. every meeting we have, there's a subdivision coming applying for availability of water. And so it's not only this project, but we have 200 homes here, 200 homes there, 200 homes here, all along 1200. And we have to provide water for them. So my little feeling is the water is such a priority that it really needs to be taken into consideration. And I wonder whether anybody's ever really done a study saying how much water, like Brent was talking about, is going to be necessary for this development, plus all the proposed subdivisions that are going in along 12th Street, but are outside of this area. And just to me, water is an integral source. And I think it's so critically important that you really need to address that in looking at this project. The other thing is there's no sewer out there either. And so the sewer, we've talked about maybe mechanical plant being constructed. It just seems to me like the county's been behind the ball in terms of the plan. I know you got plans, but that's so far down the road. To me, there ought to be some real significant construction things going on, plans for that, before you start approving subdivisions and big developments like this. Also, out there's no secondary water. So all the secondary water and culinary water is gonna come from Weaver Basin. It's the only source we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Colton Strong, 776 3rd Street in Ogden. And I just wanted to, I took a few notes of things that I wanted to bring up, some of which were already mentioned. Again, we mentioned that this property is vacant and that there's nothing there and that nothing can grow there. I only think someone that hasn't spent a lot of time near that property would say that. I've seen everything from coyotes, mule deer, varieties of different ducks, geese. And I think, as mentioned before, Utah as a legacy has a lot to offer. And it's, I don't know how much you can put a value on our public lands and the resources that we're able to use them for. Also, to echo some of the thoughts about storm drains, I'm not sure that I want to feed my family with the meat that's been swimming in 16,000 unit storm drains. And just overall, I support development. If Utah didn't have the development that it has, I wouldn't have a job. That's what I do for work. I just don't think this is the right place for such development to happen, as stated right next to WMA. I've got a 3-year-old son. From the months of October to February, I'm not sure we've missed a week of visiting Ogden Bay Wildlife Management Area. And I know this is a 30 to 50 year plan, but I really hope in 30 years he has that same opportunity to take his son or children and still be able to use those resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
Name's Jim Shearer, 2058 North, 3900 West, in Plain City. The gentleman developer spoke so fondly of collaborative effort, I felt like I was listening to a philanthropist. Did a good job there, but ultimately it boils down to a money deal. They're gonna make a bunch of money on this, or they wouldn't even bring any of this before any of us. There's a couple things that's very likely maybe it'll minimize or shrink down or whatever before it all gets completed, but a lot of that is wetland out there, and I think we're really up against a challenge trying to get our kids off their little phones and whatever world of electronics that's coming in the future, but we need to get them back outside. I know Ducks Unlimited, all of our conservation efforts are trying to get kids involved. I mean, our national, Division of Natural Resources has moved that minimum age from 12 to get a hunting license down to 7. I mean, and again, that was kind of the whole thing was to get these kids outside, you know, before they get captured by their phones or some of this other mess that's going on. If this goes through, I beg these developers to leave that wetland available for the kids, and somehow in an effort of collaboration, if they could consider some of them parks that cost us money to maintain, or maybe the HOA is gonna maintain it for a little while, but if they could incorporate them wetlands for the kids or for the park, maybe a park doesn't necessarily have to be mowed grass, maybe it can be a bog or whatever with, and it ain't just ducks that these wildlife areas, these wetlands support. They're tadpoles and frogs and skunks and coons, and I mean, it's just a whole assortment of wildlife these kids need to interact with. I beg you not to reconsider anything less than the 300 feet we've agreed on that Weaver River, and the 600 feet that we need against that WMA. Make sure that starts at their current border and goes into the development. Don't get sweet talked into that starting there and going into the WMA. We've already got a small little chunk of ground we're fighting preciously for. That's what we're all here for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Lewis IV, and I am located at 55728 South, 1475 East in Ogden. And I am here as the president of the Northern Wasatch Home Builders Association, as well as representing Adam Speth, who is the Government Affairs Committee Chair of the Northern Wasatch Association of Realtors. And we would just like to encourage the commission to continue to try to do everything that you can to remove barriers to home ownership, and then to increasing home availability for people to be able to buy and afford to purchase a home. We also would like to recognize that we believe that this project is bringing much needed housing to this area of the state and to this area of the county. And we also would like to ask the planning commission to do everything in your power to continue to do what you can to decrease the fees and the cost of homeownership, especially the fees are within your purview. Specifically, many that are currently being called, or one that is currently being called a donation, that we would ask that be brought within the bounds of laws that are specifically designed to help encompass and protect the use of funds, as everything ultimately ends up into the cost of a home. We appreciate all of that you do. Appreciate you being here so late tonight, and wish you the best in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can pass these around. My name is Ewert. I live at 6755 West, 900 South. And what I'm going to address is the potential rezoning of our trust property. At that point in time, there's no access to that property. There is no water at that property. There is no sewer at that property, and there's no power to that property and no access to that property. The owner of the property does not want this changed at this time. The developers of phase 1 and phase 2 are at the extreme south of the proposal. Years will pass before they need to develop it anywhere near the north border. This does not impede the development plan in any way. Right now, the A3 zone is the best use of the land at this time. And I think the landowners actually ought to have a say with respect to the zone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Braden Mitchell, 3506 South, 575 West of Rodell. Mr. Chair, thank you. Planning Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I did a little research before I came, to see what guiding principles you guys use as a planning commission to guide your decisions. I found it's called the Ewert County Community Character Vision. And it was adopted by ordinance resolution in 2022. And I'll just read you some of it. It says, while many residents acknowledge the growth is inevitable, there's a clear desire for it to be carefully and deliberately designed in a manner that preserves, complements, and pays tribute to the agrarian roots of the community. That's the first part of that. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time up here because I agree with all the other points that have been made. You have a very difficult decision. I was shocked when I saw the size of this development. I completely disagree that it belongs anywhere near the wildlife management area. 40,000 people. That would currently be the second largest city in Weber County with that retail, square footage and that number of residents. And so I think putting you on the spot to approve a project that's 30 to 50 years down the road is kind of unconscionable. And I have some dealings with water, and I've seen small blocks of water come available, but I've never seen this kind of water come available. It just doesn't happen. And so Commissioner Edwards was right on the mark when he said that's going to be a big problem. So I just want to, so as you do make your decision, I want to let you know, I do think you have plenty of grounds to stand on. The points have been raised. Mr. Ewert talked about the adjacent property impacts, things like that. I don't think those things have been resolved. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to address you, and I appreciate all the other comments too, because they've been very eloquently expressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Building, my address is 6529 West, 900 South. And this development is right directly below my house. And I don't want to see it. I don't want to look out my back door and see roofs and houses of commercial property or stacked houses behind my property. I enjoy my view, and I would like it to stay that way. And I agree with everybody on the water and the sewer and the migratory birds migration. And I think it's a bad idea. And it's not what people out there want. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been waiting for it. Well, I wasn't gonna do it. I got talked out of it, but I'm done. My only concern is I've seen stuff get, sorry, Jill, I've seen stuff get denied here and then get approved above. Is there something in place that if they do get this zoning and something falls through, that it's gonna revert back to the old zoning? Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Chuck Harson. The 983 West, 2150 South in West Haven. Thank you all for letting me be here and speak. I'm a long time waterfowler and with the Airboat Association and also the Utah Waterfowl Association. A development of this size, that in that area where they say that nothing goes on and there's nothing that takes place out there. One, like's been stated before, there's thousands and thousands of ducks and geese that nest out there. Mule deer, coyotes, and everything that you could ever imagine. It's one of the last wild places that we have here. And that's why nothing's going on. It's because it's neat and it's a gem. I mean, it's a gem. And I've been hunting out there for 30 years. My son's been hunting out there since he was 3. You know, I dragged that kid with me everywhere, and this is one of our favorite places to be. And it's because there's nothing going on out there. The two things that just besides the magnitude of this development, one of the things that's huge is the 600-foot rule for discharging a firearm close to any structure. If by some way, shape, or form this does go through, you need to maintain that both on the river and the WMA, because otherwise, the river can be hunted either. So that's two things that are very important. It's been touched about the large fence to keep cats out, etc. You know, all the nesting birds, everything like that. That's all been touched on. There's been some very, very good points. I think the biggest thing for me is I strongly oppose the development as a whole, but there has to be some places that we have here that are natural and that are open. And I can't even imagine for some of these residents to have this going in their backyard. I can't even imagine a development of that magnitude in my backyard. So realizing development's important. This isn't the spot. It absolutely does not need to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Brent Davis. I live at 7406 West, 900 South. I'm a small farmer, but I'm still a farmer, and things like this is just pushing us right out. That country out there has always been farmland. We've been there 4 generations, and we'd like to be able to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last call. Commissioners, I'll ask for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Need a second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Deliberation.
Here, you want me to go first? I'm gonna let it. I appreciate the comments. There's been a lot of stuff brought up tonight. And, you know, leading up to this, I appreciate the comments that were brought in today. Because as I looked at that buffer along the management area there, it really didn't click in my head. You know, at first I was thinking, you know, that is just an open area and how does it really affect? So I really appreciate the comments that's brought, whether they were emailed in, you know, we did get a bunch of emails, texts, a couple phone messages that was delivered to us. And I really opened my eyes. That is a big area. The comments that, you know, cause I kind of looked at it the same way. It's kind of almost useless ground. It's not even the best even for grazing. It doesn't grow a lot, but there is a lot of habitat out there. And there are a lot of you know, creatures, as I would call them, that utilize that. So to those comments, I really appreciate you guys taking your time coming here because, you know, we get whether it's I'd almost call it a burden of making the decisions on these, but we don't know. And we don't, you know, we don't know until we hear a lot of that out there, and it really opens the eyes to a lot of other problems I wasn't thinking about. So I'm gonna first start off with, and staff and the developers probably gonna be sick of hearing this, but to Mr. Heslop's comments, the alignment of these roads, and you know, you look in our staff report, I don't know how many of you've seen that, but you look at transportation corridors and you know, there's been some problems already in the western part of the county that, you know, you look at how 31st Street comes off and dead ends at Midland, but then the big road of 4,000 South, they're not in alignment. 21st Street, the same way, it dead ends there, but there's a city that has a plan to kind of bring that out and around. 2550, we might have done right if we connect that through, then there's a thoroughfare up to the freeway. But to put another jog in 1800 South like they proposed to do to tie it into 1600, and I've been a stick in the mud on this one, I would not be in favor of anything other than an 1800 alignment. But there's a lot that's gotta go into that. There's a lot of landowners there that haven't even been contacted. And how making that corridor goes through. That's a big point there. For the comment of 2550 running through the wetlands through the wildlife management area there on the south side. You know, I don't know the boundaries there, but that's a good one. A comment was made about the floodplain. And I think this was made by staff, but it really kind of made me scratch my head that we're gonna work through FEMA to adjust the floodplain and move a lot of dirt. Well, all that's gonna do is cause problems upstream, unless there's some mitigation that's done. And so there's a huge concern of that to what goes through. I'm not gonna belabor the point on water. Water is a huge concern. To say Little Mountain Sewer can provide a letter to this is really, I guess, kind of, in my opinion, wrong. They don't even meet the commitments to be a state board by not posting their state requirements, so I wouldn't even, I mean, Little Mountain Sewer for one has 3 connections and it can't barely serve what's out there, so to take a letter is a kind of a shocker to me. I understand that, you know, we've been in the process and the applicant has been great. They've been here through the general plan process. They were here, they talked, you know, they kind of got, because some of the colors on the map probably wouldn't have been here if they weren't a part of that process with us, and I commend them for being a part of the process. But to say we've been in the works of this and they made application 18 months ago. We as the commission up here received this development agreement 3 days ago, and to try and make a decision tonight based on a development agreement that's not even complete is just wrong when it doesn't do the due diligence of what we do as volunteers or to better serve the public on that. To say how it is compatible with the general plan, I had a chat with staff earlier today and I don't think anybody through that general plan process really understood the density that would come from this. You know, Mayor Mitchell, I appreciate your comments today, but essentially we're building Riverdale City in about the same footprint with 4 times the density. And just to kind of put it in a magnitude of that, and I'm really struggling with that. I get it's 30 to 50 years out, but you know, the comments were made that really strike me. And I believe it was Mr. Wayman, but you know, we've got to look to our kids, our grandkids, and kind of preserve some of these areas, even if it is a wasted, useless ground. To the point that Penrod's made, that was kind of my point of asking the question earlier, in regards to rezoning property that's not either got an acknowledgement or the applicant owns, and that just kind of blows me away. And the last point I'm gonna make is, you know, it's not necessarily project related, but it would tie big time into this, and I think Representative Snyder actually ran this bill last year. But water being part of a general plan is key, because how can we look to the future to know what is needed if that's not part of it? And I know that's something we're working on in county, and I think we have a deadline by the end of this year to get that in, but I think that's a big part of what we gotta look at before we start moving into this. So with that, I'm gonna stop for a minute and let someone else go.
Commissioner? Yeah, I guess first I want to acknowledge that I feel like we, as a commission, we take into consideration the landowners' rights as well. And that's something that we have thought about, as I personally have thought about. However, with that being said, I echo everything that Commissioner Edwards has said. I think about, we keep hearing this 30 to 50 years, and the field trip we went on down to Vineyard to see that development, beautiful development, was great. But I don't believe that was a large development as well, and I don't think it took 30 to 50 years. So the 30 to 50 years is okay, but I want people to understand it's coming faster than 30 to 50 years, in my opinion. It seems like that would be. So 30 to 50 years saying, oh, it's gonna be in the future is kind of false, from my perception, I could be wrong, but from my perception, that'd be it. I echo everything that Commissioner Edwards said, I do have concerns, my feelings maybe a week ago. As far as the wildlife management area, I was like, okay, it's a neighbor, just like we all have neighbors. A landowner has rights, but I feel like this is different than just a typical neighbor. It's a huge impact, and that's what I'm looking at when I'm thinking about this, is the impact on the overall community and what it's doing to it, and that community is part of that wildlife management, is that community, and like some of our citizens have mentioned, when I heard the statement that there's nothing out there, I kind of cringed as well, because there's not nothing out there, there's definitely something that I enjoy myself as well, but that doesn't mean I'm completely against it. I think that there's some accommodations that can be made to make everybody happy, but as of right now, I don't feel like those have been made, so I have concerns with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments. First one is, I'm trying to figure out how old I'm gonna be in 30 years. But having said that, I live over in Warren. Many of you know me. Many of you also know that I used to hunt that river. A lot of people west Warren come and pull my car out from being stuck over where those wells are. I used to walk from Ogden Bay all the way along that river to the Mia farm and then to the home, pick many a duck. So I'm not a virgin when it comes to that area there. I think that one of the things that bothers me about this whole process is we're all having children. And our children are having children. I have 3 children. Some of them wanted to stay in Warren, turned out that even if I give them the property, they couldn't afford to build a home. And I guess what I'm driving at here is as a development happens, 20 houses here, 40 there, 200 there. Sooner or later, there's gonna be something on that property over there. It's gonna happen. Do I wanna see it? Maybe not. Probably won't be on the planet. But there will be something that will happen. So the decision in my mind is this. Is it better to have 25 or 30 small developments over there? It could be hodgepodge put together, or is it better to have a master development? And in my mind, a master development is the better choice in my mind, because there's gonna be stores and these will be in ordered areas, schools. So I think that there is some value in this. The only problem that I'm struggling with is I would like more meat on the hook here. But before I can make any kind of decision, I want to see Weaver Basin here, or somebody that can talk to how much water we really have access to. If we have the water, I don't have that big a problem with it. It's gonna happen anyway. And so I guess where I'm at with this is in my mind, I think a master plan development is better, but it also needs good infrastructure. As far as Ogden Bay goes, I would like to see 600 feet. But you're right, there won't be anybody go down the river in a boat. Because we used to float that. Clear from West Weaver sometime and tip over the rocks and Plain City where they take our water out in the canal. And if it wasn't freezing, we would pull out down at Ogden Bay. Now that's quite a day. You know what? I love doing that. I'd love doing it now, but I don't have anybody who wants to float with me. Maybe Casey. But you know, to me, it's home. I'm completely at rest in that area out there. But at the same time, if it isn't this development, it will be another one. And I think we all have to be cognizant of that, because there's only so much property in western Weaver County And it's being eaten up because as far as the state goes, it's gonna come our way. And with that, the only thing I hope we can do is get some decent jobs so people can afford these homes. The thing I do like about this development is they have different kinds of homes. It would be a place where you could start in a small home, live in the same place if you're fortunate enough to do that, get a bigger home to raise your children. And then when you get old like me, wondering how long 30 years is gonna be, have a nice little patio home next to a trail. And if you're lucky, you can walk out around that fence and maybe get a shot of the duck. I think that that would be one of the better things that I could do. So having said all that, thanks for bearing with me, is I wanna see the water plant. And then I can live with that. But that's what I've gotta have. We'll figure the rest out. I know I have neighbors say, oh, they'll never build a house there. They haul in 3 feet of dirt, they pack it down, they build a house. Almost as fast as asparagus can come up. And we're being inundated over on 300 North now, but you know what? Do I like it? It's a future. And I think that the future is what's important, place for our children. And if Ogden Bay is always gonna be there. And hopefully our kids will go out there and enjoy it. So anyway, I've taken more than my 3 minutes. Thank you. And in 30 years, I'll be 29. Thanks.
I'm really glad that Commissioner Andriotti spoke before me because he echoed a lot of my comments and stated it very well. This development, maybe not this particular development, but development will happen in this area because of the property rights of the people in that area. And I would rather see this master plan community go in. For me, it's not just about the quality of the building going in, but it's the quality of the infrastructure. If you look deep into the development agreement, we're asking a lot as a community for this. The open space, the trails, and a lot of concerns about infrastructure, but the developer is agreeing to build a lot of this infrastructure that we won't get with other types of development. So yes, would I rather see it stay open land in perpetuity? That would be wonderful, but it's not what I can see as the reality is what would happen. As far as the preserve, like Commissioner Andriotti said, it's still going to be there. It's not going to be all of the private land next to it, but that public reserve is there. And I'm a little concerned about pushing that buffer onto the private land where the public land has been designated, and that is for the public to use. I see the concerns. I know it changes it changes the use of the land and it's big, but I appreciate the vision of the developers. I think that it's not possible to answer all of the questions right now, but that is why Charlie has put together a very clear development agreement to make sure that things revert back and that there are a lot of checks and balances on this development as it goes through to make sure it does meet the county's standards and meets what we would hope for this land as it develops. If it's going to develop, this is where I'd like to see it go. And I think there still will be opportunity. For me, I don't hunt, but I would make a lot of use out of the trails and open space that are there. More use for me personally than if it stayed the open land. So, I mean, looking at everyone's rights and opportunities on this land, it's hard to balance everyone's, it really is.
Thank you. And for me, I appreciate everyone's comments. First of all, again, thanks for the community to come out and show their care. This is a huge project. I appreciate what all of the commissioners had to say tonight. And there's a little echo. I was struggling to figure out how I wanted to say what I wanted to say, and they all said it for me. This is a huge project. It's, you know, for us, this is more potentially 30 to 50 years, more homes than exist in that area today. By far. So it's a struggle. And with the Ogden Bay component mixed in with this, it makes it even more difficult. However, what Commissioner Andriotti said is exactly right. That land will not stay open forever. And it may take less than 30 to 50 years to fill that land up with something else. I believe in the master plan concept. I think that this is a good basis to start with. I think that we all have some questions going forward about the ability of this to go forward in regard to infrastructure and particularly water. I mean, yeah, to Commissioner Edwards' comments, we're dropping a city right here in the middle of don't take offense to this, but nothing. And I don't mean it nothing. I realize it is naturally what it is. But there are some questions and concerns going forward, and we will do our best as a commission. And I think I can speak for the commission itself to make sure that if this project goes through, that it is done in a very methodical and direct way to answer as many of the concerns as we can. So having said that, commissioners, if you have no more comments, I will entertain a motion on this particular item.
Chair, given everything that's been said tonight, and you know, and a lot of my opinion on this has changed quite a bit. Hearing the comments, and I'm gonna throw one out there, probably might not be the most favorite. I just don't feel, it's not that I'm not against, that I'm against the general plan and against the growth, and I do agree that growth is gonna come. I do agree with the comment that a master plan community is better than a bunch of these small ones getting pieced together, but I just don't feel now is the time for this. We've been in works with this, like we've mentioned, for 18 months. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, so I'm gonna put out a motion there to deny this proposal based on all of the issues that's been brought forward tonight.
I have a motion. I'll ask for a second.
Comment.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about the denial brand or maybe a table. So that they can go find some of that information.
Given where we're at, I wanna see where a motion for denial moves, then the county commission can hopefully follow our recommendation. But that's where I feel on this one right now. I think there's a lot more information that's gotta come. It's not probably in the time frame that binds us by state code to get that information back, so that's the motion I want to put out.
Okay. Commissioners, I'll ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Claus?
Nay.
Commissioner Wickren?
Nay.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Neville?
Nay.
Commissioner Andriotti?
Nay.
Commissioner McCormick?
Nay.
Chair votes nay as well. Okay, having that motion struck down, I'll ask for another motion.
Before you do your motion, is it okay if I make a quick comment on just why I voted against that motion? Is that okay to give context that way?
It's up to you, Chair.
Sure.
I just feel like it's fair to the applicant and to the others to have the opportunity to maybe come to an agreement on this buffer zone and things like that, and at least revisit it rather than just deny it right now.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll ask for a motion on this item.
Chair, I motion that we table file ZMA 2024-001. An application for zoning map amendment, application and associate development agreement for the Westbridge Meadows development.
Thank you. I have a motion. I'll ask for a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner McCormick?
Aye.
Commissioner Andriotti?
Aye.
Commissioner DeVale?
Aye.
Commissioner Clumps?
Aye.
Commissioner Wicker?
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards?
Nay.
Chair votes aye, motion passes for a continuance of this application. So that's it. I think I'd like to take a break at this point. We're gonna take a 10-minute break and come back and proceed. Hear crickets, so. That's a good thing. All right, the next item on our agenda for tonight is 2.3 ZMA 2025-01. A public hearing regarding an application rezone 31.4 acres of land generally known as the Bitten D rezone, located at approximately 601 South, 3600 West, from A1 zone to R115. Director Groba.
Thank you, Chair. This is our lunch drunk, sorry. All good, it's getting late. This is our last legislative item. On this one, again, you'll be making recommendation to the county commission. We'll have a public hearing, open and close it, and Mr. Yarborough will be presenting.
Yes, good evening, commissioners, and welcome to all the citizens in the audience. Well, and appreciate the thoughtful comments and approach to taking part in these type of decisions. And so being that this is a public hearing, this just give pretty wide discretion for the final commission on what type of decisions they make and what type of things they'd like to include with that development agreement. And so just to give some basic details about this proposal, this first slide shows the location. And so this kind of helps to show the greater area and also some of the surrounding development that's already in place. You have the Riverbend Cluster subdivision just to the east of there, just east of 3600 West Street. And then you have the Westbridge Elementary School there on the corner. And then you have a church there on 900 South and 4100 West. And this proposal is to change the zoning for this area outlined in red. Because currently the zoning is agricultural A1. That's your 1 acre zoning. 40,000 square foot lots, 150 wide per single family dwelling. And what the applicant would like to do is change the zoning to the R115. That's residential, 15,000 square foot. Generally, is the size of those single family lots. So you're still dealing with some continuity as far as what you can find in this area as far as single family living. One thing I'd like to also make clear with the residential zone in particular, agricultural opportunities are removed. And so that's something I'd like to make very clear. So 4100 West Street, as it is right now, does need some improvements. The planning division and the planning commissioners are well aware of that. And that's something that we've included as a condition. Once I get to my final slide, you'll see the recommendation. Those improvements to 4100 West that we think is appropriate. And we're also going to take a look at the general plan, some of the things that how this development would conform to the general plan. And also some of the things that this plan implements to satisfy the smart growth principles. And so here we have a connectivity plan. This is something that we'd like to have with each of our proposals. And what this helps us to see is the planned and existing streets in the area. And we also have, with each of these planned and existing streets, we have plans for widening. So as you can see, 4100 West will become a minor collector street. And we're anticipating that to be widened, and also 3600 West Street widened as well. And then you have the future minor collector that pretty much runs straight through the center of this. And that one is considered a minor collector because it is basically providing circulation through the neighborhood in a neighborhood setting. So the speed limit's pretty low, 25 miles per hour. And so the right of way width, again, 60 to 66 width right of ways. And let's see. Another thing that we like to see with a development plan is traffic circulation. We try to avoid the creation of cul-de-sacs because that just really doesn't really help with circulation. We also like to see the continuation of pathway segments. And that's what you see in this green dashed line, is a pathway segment running along the canal. And we also have, throughout this development, you would have 5-foot wide sidewalks on both sides of the street. And that will also serve to help the pedestrian travel throughout, connecting up with the elementary school. And here we have the concept plan. So this plan, it's in our system, it's called the Bitten B rezone. However, on the plat here, it's called the Herrick Estates. And this just provides a little bit more context as far as what area will be developed for single family lot. And it also shows with a little bit greater detail those pathway connections to adjacent properties. Let's see here. And going on to this slide also is helpful to see the greater context of what is planned for this Western Weaver area. As far as the location of this development, you can see it. It's in a fine red line there between 3600 and 4100. And just to the southeast, you can see there's a little commercial node plan. And so vehicular traffic will be able to access that commercial node, as well as some pedestrian traffic along that greenway heading straight to the southeast. And then you also have a small commercial, actually a pretty large commercial pocket there on the corner of 12th and 4700 West. And so that's something that is something that we like to look at as far as the proximity to either existing facilities and commercial activities, as well as what is planned to come in the future. And so just to add a little more context in here, is we have this general plan map. It helps to guide where the direction of this growth. In this case, this yellow areas indicate areas that could be rezoned to that medium to large lot residential, which is that 15,000 square feet. And here we have also, this is taken from the general plan, the future streets and transit. And it shows a little bit more of a greater detail showing the planned roads, which is that fine dotted line going through the center, as well as the pathways. And I think we've pretty much covered all of these ones. Another thing I'd like to touch on is block length. And so if you're measuring from the nearest intersections, what we like to plan for is a block length from anywhere from about 500 to 1300 feet. And the distance between 900 South and this entry point on the west edge of this proposal is 600 feet. So it falls in line with our block length requirements. And let's see, as far as contributions to open space with parks, in this circumstance, there would be no open space within this proposal. However, the developer is in communication with the Western Weaver Parks District to make a donation for those park facilities, as well as acquiring properties that could serve as open space and parks. And so moving on to the staff's recommendation. So after looking at considerations for smart growth principles and conformity with the general plan, staff does recommend approval. And with those standards and any other standards that the planning commission feels appropriate to add, that we could add into the development agreement. And so you'll notice condition 1, where the standards of the development agreement are included with your recommendation. There are some specifics that may already be addressed if you have a chance to look at the development agreement. What we're trying to go with is more of a standardized development agreement that could apply to all rezones in the Western region. with the exception of course, some really large gigantic things that might require some special things, but overall, I think we're trying to stay with a template development agreement. That does secure what, the public interest as far as, road improvements, parks, pathways. Things of that nature. And we also have in the development agreement, some details regarding the, as this development comes into fruition, it will likely be phased. And so, in the development agreement, there is a section that describes how it will be phased and how traffic will be accommodated. As soon as any one of these phases or a combination of phases reaches a 15 lot threshold, they're required to provide a secondary egress connecting back to the main system. And so there's another thing I'd like to touch on regarding this. We also included with their in the development agreement details about securing escrow money to make sure that the street right of way improvements such as street trees, pathway amenities are included with the development proposal and escrow for it. And let's see here. I'll just move on to number 3, which is that the plan provide pedestrian access to the Western River Elementary School and the church and street improvements as directed by the county engineer, and the development agreement. Directed by the county engineer and the development agreement. And that improvements are made to 4100 West Street. That concludes what I had. Quickly run through it. Sorry for maybe talking a little bit fast, but I think that I also want to give an opportunity to the public to speak as well. So thank you, commissioners.
Sure. Sorry, still coming the wrong way. Yeah, don't remember. Okay, and you mentioned this, and I just don't know if we had the answer to it. And I don't know if, hopefully, some of the folks that are here to hearing tonight will live along 4100 where this subdivision comes up to just where the road is basically. And but have we gotten any more information from engineering on improving that road from the northern boundary of this subdivision, which doesn't come all the way out to 4100, and I realize that, but approximate to that 4100 boundary, or excuse me, that north boundary coming on to 4100, from there going south back to 900 south.
Unfortunately, I have not had a chance to speak with the engineer about that.
Okay. Very good.
I think that'll kind of align with my comment on this one. We get provided copies of this development agreement, but as I look through, and we're supposed to base our decisions on what's in this development agreement, and as I look through that, I love the template. I think it's great. I think it'll make, as we work through these a lot easier, but there's a lot of areas that something needs to be inserted. I find 3 things that are inserted into this so far. That the area it's in is part of the Western General Plan, and that there's a 10-year life on this. There's nothing in this development agreement that talks to 4100 that I can see. There's nothing in this development agreement that even lists how many units tie back to this. So in my opinion, this isn't a complete application. Well, it might be a complete application, but it's not complete to the point to where we should make a decision on based on, like Commissioner Bell commented in the pre-meeting, letter from engineering stating that they are happy with this, letter from legal saying that they're happy with what's in the development agreement. And essentially, for us to make a decision on, we should have an agreement in front of us that essentially is basically ready to be executed, given any other conditions that might fall from the planning commission's consideration. So but it's noticed as a public hearing. I'd love to hear what the public comments are, because the public changed my opinion and what my thought was and how to move forward on the last item, so maybe it'll get changed again.
Yeah, and yeah, we, in fairness to everybody that showed up, we are going to proceed with the hearing. Did we have any more questions for staff?
Mine for the same.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're good there, and so then, in fairness, the applicant, I think, is here with us tonight, if he wants to be. And would you like to address the commission before we open the public hearing?
I'd be more than happy to.
No, it's up to you. Give me the option. Okay.
If we hear from the public, then I can answer.
Okay, perfect. That works. All right, thank you very much. Okay, having said that, commissioners, I'll take a motion to open a public hearing. Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Okay, we are now in public hearing. Please come to the podium, give your name, address, and 3 minutes worth of anything you got.
Dale McLean. I live at 721 South, 4100 West. First of all, the first time I heard of this was last week when I got a little dinky card in the mail. And it shows us a subdivision I didn't even know about. I mean, I think it's very inconsiderate to the developers, the planning commission, whatever. Didn't inform us people that live right on the roads that are going to be impacted. At 4100 West, that doesn't have any of the infrastructure that is needed for development like this. Not only this, the egress on the 4100 West, I'm gonna be a little selfish here. Impacts me directly because it shines right into my house. I mean, maybe that's insignificant to you, but think if it was your house right on that intersection and a house you built because it was a quiet road and you didn't think that anything like this would ever happen. I could have built on the corner. I own that land also, but I didn't want to live on an intersection. And now here you go. We have no idea. 15,000 acre lots, 1 acre lots when I moved here, not that well. I was born and raised here, by the way. I left the area for somewhere between 34 and 40 years, decided to come back home. And of course, home's not the same. But I really do think it's inconsiderate that the land, the adjoining and adjacent landowners weren't even involved in this. I know part of this is my neighbor's land. He didn't say a word. And I think this needs to be considered when you're doing hodgepodge, what I call hodgepodge subdivisions. Be considerate to the other landowners, those that are going to be impacted. Who knows what the cost is going to be to the residents along 4100 West when they start widening it and they add different sewer and they add different utilities. And anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to comment. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm good.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion to close public hearing.
Chair, I'll make that motion. Oh, Wayne got me.
Okay, I need a second. Okay, got a motion to second. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, commissioners,
I want to steal Miss Hipwell's comment that I thought she was gonna get up and make. But it's been brought up multiple times and to the point that Mr. McLean brought up. I know we've asked in the past, Director Grover, but really what would it take to start making these applicants for these rezones, post a sign on the property? So that it's noticed, I get the card and we meet the state requirements, but we've asked. I just wanna know what steps to take next to try and make that requirement on the developers on this.
we could work on that.
Thank you. That's what I figured your comment was gonna be.
I just wanted to make sure people on 4100 had gotten notice.
Well, and I'll start with 4100. I mean, I need more information on this one, and that's some of it. I did find the Parks District letter So I'm comfortable with that, but I want some information on this intersection. And what the 600 feet or 800 feet, however much it is that goes from that intersection north on the east side where this is being proposed. And even though the house on the corner is not part of the subdivision, I would like to see improvement all the way out to that stop sign. Because I don't think that it's right to bring that many lots to this area and not improve that road. I will make a comment to Mr. McLean. I feel your pain because my mother's house is right at a new subdivision road and the lights come right into it, comes right square to her house. I wasn't happy about that either, so appreciate that comment personally. Commissioners, anything else you'd like to add?
I'm just gonna echo my comments I made earlier. I don't feel that we have the information provided in front of us to make a decision on this tonight, and if there's no other comment, I'm ready to make a motion.
I don't have any comments other than I feel like the applicant should have an opportunity to speak.
Sure. Yeah.
Pat Burns, 2702 North Burns Lane, North Harbor. Good to see you guys again. Yeah, as the applicant, we do actually try to meet with people and surrounding people, but it is very difficult. And I honestly didn't think to meet with people across the street. Maybe we should add that into what we do, but we do try to talk to some people that we can. And we walk the property and so we do try to talk to different people when we're out there trying to put this together. So, Brent, I'm not quite sure what we're missing from the program, but I'd be more than happy to put anything in it. But I've made a few of these applications and we've applied and I've had a phone agreement on the planning side. We wait till we get it finalized and it goes to the when we meet with the county commissioners, yeah. So if we're not doing something appropriate, I'll gladly fix that. We've got the phone agreement, we have the master. The backbone of it, and we're trying to make sure we get everything put in. And the only thing we're missing, we gladly could add to it and make sure that gets done before we get to the commissioners.
State code's been changed. The legislative body has to approve the development agreements as well. So, given that said, we've been provided with the draft, and like my comment was stated, there's about 3. I take that back. There's 4 because there's information in there regarding the Parks District. But the development agreement that's in our packet that we've been provided is not complete. It doesn't list you as the developer. It just says insert name of master developer. It doesn't list the number of units that's in it. It doesn't list, I mean, you're welcome to look through it, but there's no information in there that ties back to this. And given that what the new state code is that we have to recommend based on what's in that development agreement, I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation on something that has no information in it.
The state code requires a development agreement with the.
No, we require that if there is a development agreement, that it gets reviewed by this body.
Got it, okay. As I said, sure, you don't have to have a development agreement, okay. Yeah, and that we can.
The only way to get a rezone is through a development agreement, which then puts it back on us to review and pass a recommendation to the commission.
Yeah, well, we can definitely put some stuff in it if we'll do whatever you guys would like us to do. We definitely want to come with a full packet and, put all the information in. We'll definitely work on that. Was there any other questions or?
For me, Mr. Burns is just before anyone, wondering if you have any insight on that expectation.
We'll definitely bring it up to a proper road, 24 feet wide access, bringing up into the development, just like we've done on other developments as well.
Do you have any idea what
The way, yeah, right away.
Like how far up you're gonna do that and
It'd be from.
I guess for me to be a little bit more specific, are you planning on doing that just right in front of your opening, your access to your
No, all the
development,
way
or?
to the tying in
To the corner?
East-west street that we would tie into, to the corner,
Okay.
yes.
Any idea or any thoughts of going further north as well for those homes that are existing there that would impact with your development? I guess that's just what I was kind of curious about, because as you can see on the map, your development proposal really is in the backyards of, what is it, 3, 4 houses? So I was maybe thinking that since that would be impacting that as well, that the improvements would go up further there. Just a suggestion, I don't know if that's a requirement, but just curious of your thoughts there.
I honestly hadn't thought of going that direction. I'm not opposed to it at all, making it if it's a substandard road, making it a standard road. I don't know. We could definitely look at that. I honestly haven't looked at going north. But we could definitely do. We have looked at going south and walked it and checked all that part out because we definitely know that's a requirement. But yeah, I have zero problems looking to go north and see what that looks like. I just can't tell you
All the way
unless
to,
if there was something, a pipe or other stuff that certainly have to be pipes, it might be different, but.
I was just missing. No, on that part, I was just saying, if you have no problem going north, let's see how far we can get you to go north.
Anything else, commissioners?
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Not for Mr. Burns, but I echo Brand's concerns with this. Statements that he already stated.
All right, commissioners, any more deliberation? Okay, I'll ask for a motion on this item.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we table this item until we can get at least a better copy of the development agreement with the information that is needed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Okay. Commissioner Claus,
Aye.
Commissioner Rickard,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Val. Aye. Commissioner Andriotti.
Aye.
Commissioner McCormick.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Item has been tabled for further discussion. Thank you very much.
Can I ask one follow-up question? Is that, if we're able to get the development and meet all the requirements for that, was there anything else that we needed to do decide? I can go look at 400, and get one back. I just want to make sure if there's something else I need to do decide for the development, I'd love to hear that.
Well, the road's definitely in, the development agreement's definitely what, needs to be worked on. Commissioners, anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thanks for asking for the clarification. Okay. Next item on our agenda is public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. Anybody want to volunteer? Mr. McFarland, you usually have good stuff to say. By all means.
So I'd like to make a comment on everything that was on the agenda tonight. You guys, I go on planning commission meetings every week, and I just want you to know how I feel about you guys are very professional. We love the way you talk, respond, work through problems. It's really, just so you know, it's really good to, as a developer anyway, and as a citizen, it's good to have it. So I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just have one more thing. So again, when I talk about not being considerate with the developers and all that, I have another piece of property in that town, further to the west, that I hear is right in the bullseye of more development. Yet I've never been contacted. I know the adjoining landowner to me has actually been offered a price to sell his land. I haven't even been contacted. I know I'm the bullseye. So again, I don't know who does this planning with developers, but it gets a little irritating.
You're more than welcome to contact the planning office, or you can give me your name and number, and I'll be glad to give you a call tomorrow. And
I want you to call me, I don't wanna have to call you out of hearsay.
I would love to get
So we're
your
not gonna do it.
name and number. I'll get it after the meeting, sir. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, all right. Remarks from planning commissioners.
After that, the lot person want to make a comment. We, as the planning commission, don't go out and solicit land to develop. It's done by willing buyer, willing seller. We look at applications when they're brought in front of us, so to to stand up and accuse the planning staff of doing a poor job related to, because you weren't notified because your neighboring property decided to go in and wants to enter into to sell to, you know, possibly a developer. I think that's, you should maybe visit with your neighbors and get that information. It's not necessarily through us. We just receive applications and act on them as it's done, so, just wanted to clear that up, cause I know we have a thankless job up here and not that we're here for praise, but I don't like getting shots taken at us that we're out there soliciting to see this develop. I don't wanna see any of this ground develop. I grew up here, but I feel that it's my duty to sit up here to try and make sure that we're doing things correctly. We're growing smart and we're looking at all the possibilities as these applications come in, so.
Agree. Thank you.
And to build on that, I know I've talked a lot tonight and I apologize, but still, the meeting's going quicker, Cammy. It's not quite 8:30 yet. We can go for another few minutes. But I guess I'm not, I've made some comments tonight and they really come from the heart. It's not that I'm against the development. I'm not against private property land rights, but I think we need to look at the overall impact on the community as well as when we look at these, and it's a very fine line and a very fine balance to balance that private property rights and you know, the impacts on the community and so that's one thing I've really taken to heart. You know, we've talked on the previous item with Westbridge, not saying it's a bad project. It's really, you know, and we've seen, I think that developer's proven himself well at other large developments. And I appreciate all the work they've done to it. It's just sometimes we gotta look, is it the right time? And Commissioner Andreotti hit it on the head. You know, the time's gonna come and we don't wanna pass up an opportunity, because I agree a master plan community is gonna be a lot better served to the community. But what scares me is we're looking at a 30 to a 50-year project, and this is the second one now in the last few months that's made application for these large scale deals. And my concern is, look how much has changed in this. I mean, I'm not, my hair's going gray like Commissioner Andreotti, and I'm getting there, but I don't have I'm not gonna say the years, but I'm gonna say the knowledge behind the gray hair. And as I look at this, you know, how much this community's changed in my lifetime, and even start bringing that back to what's changed in the last 20, 10, 5 years. To sit here and say that we're gonna enter into an agreement that's gonna have a lifespan of 50 years, just really, I guess, I ain't found a way to wrap my head around it, because a lot of things changed. Heck, in 50 years, we might have flying cars. Why do we need roads? Because there's those new little, I seen it on the news last night, the electric airplanes that you're gonna start traveling with. I mean, it just concerns me to go out that far with this. You know, we make a general plan, that general plan is supposed to look at 5 to 7 years. But yet we're gonna approve developments that can go out without any reconsideration based on what was in that previous development agreement to 50 years. And I really struggle with that, so that, I'm done, sorry.
You're perfectly okay. I'll just add to that a little bit. First of all, I appreciate this commission. It's a commission with a conscience. And we do try to do as much due diligence as possible. And I appreciate the compliments when we get them, because usually we don't get that. So thanks for the thanks. And it is, things are changing. And I think maybe, Bren, in 10 more years, when you have a few more grays and maybe a few less on top, like some of us, you'll appreciate this even more, what I'm gonna say, and that is there's an orderliness to this that has to happen because we have such a finite area and such finite resources. I actually think that the more better planning that we can do now is definitely, and I know you agree with this, but I'm just gonna say it out loud, is going to permit what the future is going to be. And we just can't continue to do the developments the way that we have. And we know that we're gonna have a ton more of the smaller type developments come in here in front of us. And they're fine. I mean, that's all the prerogative of the property owner. But there's going to be plenty of those, and they're gonna provide plenty of larger lots. And we need to be a little bit centered on being able to provide housing for the missing middle, I think is the term. And that means a lot to me because my kids are old enough now to be buying homes and it's a struggle. It's a struggle for those kids to be out there trying to buy homes. And I'm not saying that even the most affordable homes are affordable because we all know that they're not. But we've got to make an effort to reduce the amount of waste and be more efficient with the way that we plan and go forward. So thanks very much for letting me throw my 2 cents worth on top of your 2 cents. Anybody else?
Sure. Sarah, go ahead.
Fraser? Okay. So this meeting in particular has brought to my attention just this, I don't know, this balance that we're trying to do. I understand the fear of moving forward with a 30-year plan, but I don't know how we can develop a master plan community without that kind of vision. I don't think it could be funded. I don't think someone's going to put the startup, I mean, they're a year and a half in with us. I'm sure there's more than that. And then there's also, like they said, 3 to 5 years of just planning infrastructure. And if they're going all that way without a commitment from us that we're not going to change our minds, I just don't know that we're going to attract the kind of development we want if we're not willing to give them a little bit more security. So trying to figure out that balance and I think for me that the development agreement is that balance, that we put terms in it that protect us, that protect their investments so we can move forward. I know we really want to have all the questions answered, but I'm afraid that if we belabor it too much, we are going to stop the development from happening and progressing forward. So I'd just like us to think of what is this balance where we have enough information and enough fail safes in our development agreement that we can move forward, but not so much that we prevent the development, especially good long-term master plan community development from moving forward. So.
Thank you. Man, the 2 inn commissioners have been awful quiet tonight. Anything?
If you need.
Yeah, go on.
I'm ready to adjourn.
Perfect. That sounds good.
You got comments.
I got 2.
I'm not ready yet. I just got a few comments, and one of them is the staff that Weber County has here. The best staff that, I haven't seen a lot of staffs work, but I know a professional staff when I see one. That was part of my job when I had a real job. Because good leadership gives good products. And the equals are, effort equals results. And this staff is small compared to maybe some other cities. And my hat is off to them because I would be down in Provo now in the booby hatch. Because the amount of work that these guys do is just phenomenal. And then I want to switch over to this group right here. Okay, I've been sitting up here probably since about 1994, off and on, more on and off. I took a few breaks and I'm back. And the thing that I've noticed is we're forward thinking. We're not afraid to question. Brenda's great to question because we conduct ourselves very professionally. And I've got to tell you, there's times that didn't happen. There's times I left here, I wanted to tear the fender off my car. But that's in the past. We're viewing the future. 30 years, a long time. Think about how fast the last 30 years went by. Because it's moving faster now than it was in the past. And as long as we can have these discussions and have fair play between landowners that sell their property, developers, planning staff and planning commission, we're gonna be just fine. 30 years is a long time. And if I had a recommendation, we need to review that. down the line, but I think that we'll learn how to do these things. Because when you have a small staff, if you're sitting around trying to decide where you're at, you've lost a day's worth of work. And so balancing that work, and Director Grover, my hat's off to you. Thank you for that. Thank you. It is a absolute privilege to sit up here. I've seen a lot, good and bad, but I've never left here once in all the years thinking that I was wasting my time. People that know me, I bleed Weber County. And I will continue to bleed Weber County, and I will continue to bleed Warren, Reese, or West Warren, because that's where my roots are. And they're good people, good, honest, hardworking people. And they deserve the best from us. And I hope we're doing that. Thank you.
One more, Commissioner, to put your mind at ease, Brent. The first plant unit development I was involved in started in 1974, and today it's still going. Things change, but so does it, so it can happen.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else? Quick, because those are hard to follow. Just echo everything everybody said. But you've all heard me say this before, but I'm sorry to repeat it. This commission up here is very objective. In some of our meetings, especially the work sessions, things like that, we're very passionate people, I'll tell you that too. Sometimes I feel like I'm arguing with my siblings because that's how we communicate, right? But it's because we really are close that way and we can have discussions. And we've had our mind set on a certain thought process, and then here's somebody else and that changes. We are very, very objective and willing to listen to one another. And I know that my mind's been changed and I've been educated thousands of times just in the few years that I've been here. So I really appreciate working with them. And then echoing the staff as well, that literally anything that the community is sending to the staff, we receive that. I mean, Tiffany literally sent us emails during this meeting from somebody from the public that had just barely sent it to her. They are on top of that about as far as letting us know that information as fast as they can. So we truly appreciate them. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Okay, Liam, you're the last guy out.
You guys have had enough praise for one night.
Yeah, no comment. Liam's our reality check, and I wanted to save the best for last, so Director Grove.
So a couple things. First off, I appreciate how you handled the public comment tonight. It was handled very professionally. You allowed everyone to speak and you gave it the time. So appreciate that because that's what it's all about is public comment. The next one is typically we send you to the fall planning conference. Because the spring planning conference is typically down south. We just don't have the budget to do that. But this year, the spring planning conference is in Logan. And I'm just wondering if I was able to find some budget for that, would you want to go to the planning conference in Logan, Utah? The date is May 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And you don't have to go the whole time. You can just go one day. But if you'd like, I can have Tiffany send the information out to you, so you have that, and then you can just respond back to her.
Please. And then did everybody get, sorry to interrupt, but did everyone get the information from, I think Tiffany sent it out for the seminar that's gonna be over here at the Egyptian, is it next week or the week after next?
I think it's next week.
Okay, is it 19th?
I think so, but we'll double check and we'll send that back out to you.
And I apologize, because I didn't respond to that, I don't think, I wanna go.
Okay, perfect. And
I'm on the record with that now.
And actually, Weber County's hosting it, though it's only $25, they're like, we'll waive it, and I'm like, we'll pay for it, you know.
Stephanie's got a bigger budget, she could.
So anyway, we'll get that out to you.
Anything else, Rick?
Nope, that's it, thanks.
Thank you. All right, with all of that said, I think it was a successful meeting. Thanks everybody that participated, appreciate everybody showing up. from the public and from staff and from the commission. So thanks again. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Ready for Uncle Jeff's motion?
Yeah.
Get it.
I make the motion. All right, second. All in favor? Aye. We're done.